Long Chen recovered while examining the strange earth essence floating within his primal chaos space. It actually didn't fall to the ground. It simply floated there as if it couldn't merge with the ground. When he had sucked it into the primal chaos space, he had clearly felt a terrifying burst of power about to erupt from it, and it had been about to flee. However, just the slightest shaking from the primal chaos space caused it to turn still. The earth essence was now dull, like an ordinary piece of earth. Even its divine pressure had disappeared. Long Chen was thankful for the primal chaos bead, otherwise, this priceless treasure would have been impossible to snatch. However, not just anything could be sucked into the primal chaos space. For example, the black illusion dragon flame. He hadn't dared to pull it into the primal chaos space for fear that it would destroy all his medicinal fields. The reason why he dared to do so with the earth essence was because it wasn't as berserk and explosive as the black illusion dragon flame. However, he hadn't expected the earth essence to attempt to flee. Fortunately, it had been suppressed by the primal chaos bead. As Long Chen could only control the slightest bit of the primal chaos space, he was unable to force it to listen to his orders. Hence, there were many things that he could only test bit by bit. After 2 hours, they had recovered a portion of their energy and slowly stood. Tang Wan-er had made great contributions when it came to taking the earth essence this time. Only she had had full spiritual yuan at the time, otherwise, without enough spiritual yuan, Long Chen wouldn't have been able to draw it into the primal chaos space. Long San, let's split our gains. The pill fairy's blush faded as if nothing had happened. Our gains? Asked Long Chen. The black illusion dragon flame is currently completely suppressed, and it has been refined into flame essence. However, it's too berserk, and after being suppressed, seeing that it had no hope, it actually exploded of its own volition. The energy it felt behind was refined into 2 portions, a berserk energy and an illusory energy. The pill fairy took out the day-night furnace. Its runes revolved, and it turned transparent, allowing them to see what was inside. There were 2 spheres, each with one kind of rune around it. Those runes were the same runes as the ones in the black illusion dragon flame's eyes. Its eyes had represented its 2 different kinds of power, the softer illusory power and its fierce berserk power. Clearly, the pill fairy was letting Long Chen choose between these 2 kinds of power. Then I won't be courteous. Long Chen delightedly waved his hand, and a golden flame dragon flew into the day-night furnace, swallowing the globe of berserk energy in one gulp. Long San, the pill fairy couldn't help being a bit guilty. The reason the black illusion dragon flame was ranked above the heaven incinerating flame wasn't just because its destructive power was greater than it, but because it possessed a strange kind of power. Its illusory energy was priceless to alchemists. This illusory power had its own special name, the black illusion spirit flame. It was the flame alchemists longed for the most. However, the black illusion dragon flame's berserk power was merged with its illusory power. To separate them required a great deal of time. Hence, the pill fairy had actually been quite lucky that this black illusion dragon flame had been too berserk and detonated itself upon seeing that it couldn't escape. To increase the power of its detonation, it had expelled all its gentler, more spiritual illusory power, and instead concentrated all its berserk power. That explosion had caused the pill fairy to receive a heavy injury at the time. Fortunately, the day-night furnace was extremely powerful, or even another divine item would have exploded from that. Due to this explosion, there was no need for them to separate the illusory power from the berserk power. In fact, it was even purer, as no matter what a person did, some of that berserk energy would remain in the illusory aspect, but here, the black illusion dragon flame had done it all on its own. The 2 types of energy were as pure as possible. The pill fairy naturally wanted the illusory aspect, but in truth, it had been mostly thanks to Long Chen that they had managed to obtain the black illusion dragon flame. If it hadn't been for him, she'd have long since given up on it. So, while she naturally wanted this black illusion spirit flame, she couldn't say it directly. That was why she gave the initiative to Long Chen. She was already prepared for Long Chen to take the black illusion spirit flame, because she knew that he was also an alchemist, and an extremely powerful one at that. The black illusion spirit flame posed a fatal attraction to alchemists. No alchemist could resist its lure. So the pill fairy's heart was conflicted. However, Long Chen had taken the berserk energy without hesitation. That berserk flame had no use to alchemists. Hence, the pill fairy was both grateful and ashamed. She opened her mouth to speak, but she found that she had no reasons. Hee, I have 2 reasons, one real and one false. According to a normal person, I should say that I adore beautiful women and only the black illusion spirit flame is fit for your immortal grace. To be able to see you soar to the peak of the pill Dao would be my life's greatest fortune. Long Chen's mischievous smile completely ruined the effect of his words. The pill fairy reddened, not expecting him to say such words in front of Meng Qi and the others. Of course, that's all nonsense. That idiot Xin is the only one who would use such words to trick women. The truth is simply that this berserk flame is what I need the most. Even if you wanted it, I would have to fight to get it back because it's very important to me, said Long Chen matter-of-factly. These were honest words. The black illusion spirit flame might be the #1 divine flame for alchemists. It could merge with the pill flame and support the alchemist, and that might allow them to refine a legendary peerless grade pill. Medicinal pills were divided into low grade, middle grade, high grade, top grade, and peerless grade. Top grade pills were already extremely rare existences in this world. As for peerless grade medicinal pills, they were restricted to just legends. No one had ever seen one. If the pill fairy had the black illusion spirit flame, she might just become the first person to refine a peerless grade pill since the Dark Era. However, all of that was just nonsense to Long Chen. He was surrounded by powerful enemies and could barely protect his own life, so how could he have any interest in pursuing the pill Dao? The berserk aspect of the black illusion dragon flame was precisely what he needed. It was pure brute power. Once Hua Long refined it, its power would probably defy the heavens. Furthermore, once Hua Long devoured its energy, it would still retain the power of the heaven incinerating flame. As Long Chen could refine pills with the heaven incinerating flame and fight with the black dragon illusion flame, he naturally didn't care about some illusory flame. Alright, since we both contributed equally, we'll split it equally. It's very fair, said Long Chen. Thank you. The pill fairy was extremely grateful. From start to finish, she felt that Long Chen was simply saying this for her benefit. Anyone who was an alchemist wouldn't be able to resist the black illusion spirit flame's charm. In her eyes, Long Chen's explanation was only to make her feel better about herself. For him to even go that far for her, she felt even more grateful as well as a bit lost. The pill fairy put away the day-night furnace. After that, they rested for a full day, using their heavenly Dao manifestation to recover quickly. Long Chen only recovered to 50% in that time, showing that compared to Empyreans, his recovery speed was still lacking. However, 50% was enough. They began flying toward where they had entered from. Like ascending mortals, they flew toward the moon up ahead. From up in the sky, they overlooked the mass of ruins. The scene when they had first entered had been completely wrecked. The women looked at Long Chen. Meng Qi, Chu Yao, and Tang Wan-er laughed. Wherever Long Chen went, destruction followed. It had been like this for so many years. Even this beautiful sacred land had been turned to ruins. The southern Xian region's experts had been completely annihilated. Only DXN had fled, or more accurately been saved. However, considering the ill omens Long Chen had read in his future, it was unknown if he lived or not. They entered the water and rapidly swam up. Once they were out, furious roars rang out. They were surrounded by golden tree demons. I'll open a path. Tang Wan-er walked to the front and slowly formed hand seals in front of her. Long Chen suddenly felt a strange fluctuation in space. As Tang Wan-er advanced, any tree demons within 100,000 meters exploded. It was like countless invisible blades were following Tang Wan, forming a domain that sliced the tree demons to dust. Golden specks rained down. This is the pinnacle of wind, embryonic spatial blades, exclaimed the pill fairy with shock. Long Chen and the others were also shocked, as well as delighted. Unexpectedly, Tang Wan-er was able to use her wind inheritance so quickly. They followed Tang Wan-er. The golden tree demons crazily attacked, but they all exploded when they stepped into her domain. The ground turned golden. Tang Wan-er directly killed her way all the way to the exit. You've come out. Hurry and run through the secret transportation formation. Something major has happened. One of the Skywood Divine Palace's disciples was there waiting for them. What happened? Asked Long Chen. I should be the one asking you. Just now, practically all the leaders of the top sects in the southern Xian region rushed over to the Skywood Divine Palace. They looked like they wanted to destroy the Skywood Divine Palace right there and then. Even the southern Xian region's Ancient Family Alliance's branch master came, as well as the Martial Heaven Alliance's branch master. All those large figures that haven't appeared in so many years have come. The palace master immediately sensed something was wrong and secretly told me to wait here for you so that you could run through the transportation formation. But why is it only just the few of you? Where are the others? Asked the elder. Meng Qi, Chu Yao, and the Pill Fairy instantly understood that once those disciples had been annihilated, their corresponding soul jade tablets had shattered, startling their sections. Most sects would keep soul jade tablets of their core disciples. Using 1 drop of essence blood as a spiritual mark, it would shatter when that person died. The sects used this method to keep track of their disciples' life and death. Could it be? Seeing Chu Yao and the others' expressions, the elder was alarmed. She thought of an extremely terrifying possibility. Elder Luo, activate the transportation formation. Let's go, said Chu Yao. Clearly, the palace master had guessed what had happened and wanted to send Long Chen away secretly. Long Chen had annihilated the southern Xian region's experts. That had included Han Feifei, Wang Shan, as well as countless famous heavenly geniuses. This was a major affair. If Long Chen walked out through the front gate, he would probably be torn to pieces by those ancient monsters. Good. Don't move. I'll activate the transportation Jade Talisman. It'll bring you outside the Skywood Divine Palace through the formation. The elder nodded, seeming to understand something. She took out a Jade Talisman. No need. I'll go through the main gates. Long Chen stopped the elder from crushing the talisman. Long Chen, exclaimed Chu Yao. I might not look for trouble, but I'm not afraid of one. Since I dared to do what I did, I dare to bear the responsibility for my actions. I won't let someone else take the blame. It hasn't happened in the past, and it won't happen in the future. Long Chen shook his head and walked through the huge gate of light. That was the entrance they had used to enter here. Long Chen vanished from their sight when he walked through. Elder Luo was stunned. She had never expected Long Chen to be so crazy as to not even listen to the palace master's arrangements. Let's go. Don't you know Long Chen's temperament? Other than when we ask him to show tolerance, when has he ever conceded to anyone? Meng Qi seemed to have predicted this result and pulled Chu Yao through the gate with her. Tang Wan, Lu Ruyan, and Cloud followed suit. The Pill Fairy watched as they vanished. She stood there quietly. Pill Fairy, Elder Luo was still dumbfounded. The palace master had sent her to bring Long Chen and the others away secretly. However, before she could even understand what was happening, the only one left in front of her was the Pill Fairy. I'll have to trouble Elder Luo to send me away. Too much enmity and grievance exist between us to be together. Maybe in the next life. The Pill Fairy's eyes were filled with sadness. Space twisted, and Long Chen appeared in a plaza. As soon as he appeared, he saw a group of people overflowing with killing intent. Long Chen. The Skywood Divine Palace's master had been trying to placate these experts when Long Chen and the others appeared. Her calm expression stiffened. These people were the top figures of the southern Xian region. They had come to the Skywood Divine Palace for one purpose, to find out how their disciples had died inside. However, when they had arrived, they were shocked to find others just like them charging over. When asked, they found that their talented disciples had also died in the Skywood Divine Palace. It had to be known that the Jade Lake pageant was not something with a high mortality rate. Their disciples mostly depended on luck and destiny to find suitable treasures inside the Jade Lake's sacred land. There were no death traps. Some disciples had died there before. Since there were many cases of people killing others for treasures, a few disciples dying was normal. They had to have died to other people. So these sect leaders had come to investigate who had slain their disciples, only to find that over 80% of the southern Xian region's top sect leaders had come. In other words, their disciples had also died. Furthermore, even the southern Xian region's Ancient Family Alliance and Martial Heaven Alliance's branch masters had come. Even the ruler of the Earth Spirit City, the Wang family's master, had come. That person was the father of Wang Shan and Wang Hai. Han Feifei, Wang Shan, Wang Hai, and dozens of other Empyreans had all died in the Jade Lake's sacred land. This time, all the southern Xian region's experts charged out, demanding that the Skywood Divine Palace's master gave them an explanation. The palace master had no idea what had happened. The Jade Lake's sacred land was a minor world isolated from them. Even she had no way to see what was happening inside. However, as soon as she had seen this many experts arrive, she had felt that something was wrong. The first thing she had thought of was Long Chen. There was no death trap in the Jade Lake's sacred land. Even if there was, it wasn't one that would annihilate everyone. That made her heart clench. Thinking of how Long Chen had slaughtered practically all the Eastern Xian region's heavenly geniuses in the Battle of the Grand Han, she guessed it had something to do with him. Thinking of that, she had immediately felt a chill. In order to placate these experts, she could only say that an accident must have occurred in the Jade Lake's sacred land and that she would immediately investigate. So she had sent a soul transformation elder inside to wait for Long Chen and the others. Furthermore, she had also started gathering all the elite disciples within the soul transformation realm. She had intentionally stalled for time in hopes that the elder would be able to find Long Chen in time. But as a result, Long Chen suddenly appeared right in front of her. The thing she had been most worried about had really occurred. Long Chen's arrival raised quite a few startled cries. Many recognized the famous demon king of the Eastern Xian region. "Long Chen, why are you here?" demanded a white-robed elder. Her hair was white, and his eyes were like golden lanterns, giving off sharp light. This elder was the Ancient Family Alliance's southern branch master. He was also Han Feifei's grandfather, Han Wanqi. Beside Han Wanchang was a short but exceptionally bulky middle-aged man. He was Wang Shan and Wang Hai's father, the ruler of the Earth Spirit City, Wang Haishan. That Wang Haishan had cared deeply about his sons, so he had split his name and bestowed one part to each of them, calling them Wang Hai and Wang Shan. However, now that they had been annihilated, he felt like he was going insane. "Why can't I be here? Is this your home?" demanded Long Chen. Long Chen was well aware of why these people had come. However, he didn't want to run. That would not be in accordance with the 9-star He-Gem Body Art's will. He couldn't retreat. "Speak. How did my sons Wang Shan and Wang Hai die?" shouted Wang Haishan, glaring at Long Chen. He had already made up his mind that Long Chen was the killer. Wang Hai was slain by Wang Shan. "Many people here can testify to it," said the palace master. Just now, she had received a spiritual transmission from Meng Qi about what had happened. She had never expected so many twists and turns to occur in the Jade Lake's sacred land. Furthermore, the 4 great inheritances of earth, water, fire, and wind had all appeared. However, no matter what, those people had died at Long Chen's hands. These sect leaders were all overflowing with rage, and any explanation would be useless to them. Once they learned that Long Chen had killed them, they would definitely tear Long Chen to pieces. "Long Chen, don't admit that you killed them. Just say something happened in the Jade Lake's sacred land. I'll help mediate the rest so that you can leave safely," messaged the palace master to Long Chen. "Thank you for your kind intentions, but I can handle this matter," replied Long Chen. Long Chen knew that the palace master was helping him out, but he disdained lying. That was also not in accordance with the essence of the 9-star He-Gem Body Art. "Then who killed Wang Shan?" roared Wang Haishan. By the time all the sect leaders had rushed over, the disciples that had failed the trials had been amusing themselves in the Skywood Divine Palace for a few days and told them what they knew. So those disciples could truly testify about Wang Hai's death. "I did." Long Chen pointed to himself calmly. When Long Chen admitted that he had killed Wang Shan, an uproar erupted. So he really had been killed by Long Chen. Die! Wang Haishan let out a furious roar and a punch at Long Chen. Divine runes surged out along the ground as he sucked away all the earth energy within thousands of miles. Wang Haishan was at the peak of the life star realm. This punch contained all his power. It practically wrote out death for Long Chen. Boom! Long Chen's divine ring appeared behind him. He raised a palm, catching Wang Haishan's punch. After a powerful chi wave exploded, people were shocked to find that Wang Haishan's incredibly powerful punch was unable to rattle Long Chen in the slightest. "Do you want to hear why I killed Wang Shan?" asked Long Chen. "I don't care what your reason was. You killed my beloved son, so I'll kill your whole family." Wang Haishan let out a furious roar, and a dark yellow rune appeared on his forehead. A ray of light suddenly shot out of the ground at Long Chen's back. Even as he faced attacks from the front and back, Long Chen's expression was calm. He nodded. "That was just the answer I was looking for. Thank you, I'm very satisfied." Suddenly, 5 stars appeared in Long Chen's eyes. Ignoring the attack behind him, his legs struck like lightning at Wang Haishan's crotch. Long Chen's foot struck like lightning, viciously striking Wang Haishan's crotch and causing him to fly back with a miserable wail. Wang Haishan had underestimated Long Chen too much. He thought that when he used his full power, Long Chen wouldn't be able to receive a single one of his attacks. However, with the 5-star battle armor, Long Chen was so strong that Wang Haishan, a peak life star expert, was unable to shake him in the slightest. Instead, his one attack caused Wang Haishan's lower body to explode. As raging winds roared around him, Long Chen sneered, "Since you don't want to hear my explanation, I don't need to bother wasting the effort. I'll tell you all right now, all your southern Xin region's experts were slain by me, Long Chen. If you want revenge, then come. It's the same thing, fight or fuck off." Long Chen knew that this kind of blood debt could not be resolved by reason. Explaining had no meaning as no one would care. However, he wasn't unreasonable. If they wanted him to explain, he would. It was just that since they didn't, he wouldn't have to waste the time. He didn't care either way. If no one would listen to his explanation, then they couldn't blame him when he killed them. Anyone who wanted his life would have to be prepared to risk their own. A random attack from Long Chen had destroyed the lower body of one of the rulers of the southern Xian region, startling the other experts from this region. However, their fury was further provoked when they heard that Long Chen had slain their disciples. "Bastard, hand back the life of my granddaughter." The ancient family alliance's branch master, Han Wanchang, roared furiously and slashed a sword at Long Chen. When that sword slashed through the air, heaven and earth quivered. Long Chen snorted and suddenly thunder force circulated around him. Lightning wings appeared on his back. He shot toward the clouds like a great pung. "If you want to kill me, then come with me. Don't stain the pure land of the Skywood Divine Palace with your dirty blood." Long Chen rushed off in an instant. He didn't want to destroy the Skywood Divine Palace. As for Han Wanchang, he was shocked. He had clearly used his aura to lock Long Chen down when attacking. However, his lock had been absolutely useless. Long Chen had ignored it and left as soon as he had wanted to. That shocked Han Wanchang, as well as infuriated him. Long Chen didn't place him in his eyes. That was an insult. "Brat, where do you think you're running?" Han Wanchang charged after him. The other southern Xian region experts also followed. "Master, Chu Yao suddenly walked over to the palace master. She knelt on the ground, ashamed. "Good child, you can go. As master and apprentice, I respect your decision. No matter what happens, you will always be my apprentice. Even if you are no longer a disciple of the Skywood Divine Palace, you will still be my apprentice." The palace master lifted Chu Yao and gently rubbed her cheek with a loving smile. She knew that Chu Yao was about to leave. Although she had been prepared, she couldn't help feeling a bit unwilling. Chu Yao was her most outstanding apprentice, and she viewed Chu Yao as her own child. Now, Long Chen had become enemies with the entire southern Xian region, and Chu Yao had to stand by him. Since that was the case, she could only leave the Skywood Divine Palace. Otherwise, the Skywood Divine Palace would have to face everyone's aggression. With Chu Yao's kind nature, she definitely wouldn't want to implicate her master or her sect. The palace master truly understood Chu Yao well. She knew exactly what Chu Yao was thinking, and she comforted her by saying that even if Chu Yao left the Skywood Divine Palace, she would forever be her apprentice. "Thank you, master." Chu Yao once more knelt on the ground, kowtowing to the palace master 3 times. This was a form of goodbye. In all her years at the Skywood Divine Palace, the palace master had treated her like her own child, even sacrificing her longevity and beauty to rebuild Chu Yao's foundation and talent. Chu Yao didn't know how she was ever supposed to repay her master for her kindness. Tears of shame dripped down her face. "Good child, you can go. Even if you leave the Skywood Divine Palace, I will always be your master. As your master, my greatest hope is to see my apprentice's accomplishments surpass my own. That would be my greatest glory. Nothing else is worth bothering about. I trust you will definitely become stronger than me, and I trust that day won't be too far in the future." "I'll eagerly await that day," said the palace master softly as she helped wipe away Chu Yao's tears. Chu Yao nodded. Clenching her teeth, she flew away with Meng Qi and Tang. "Using my status as master of the Skywood Divine Palace, I announce that starting from today, Chu Yao is no longer a disciple of the Skywood Divine Palace. Her actions have nothing to do with my Skywood Divine Palace." The palace master's voice rang out through the sky. Although she had been prepared, Chu Yao still felt like a blade was slicing her heart. "Don't feel bad. She only announced that you are no longer a disciple of the Skywood Divine Palace. She didn't say you are no longer her apprentice," comforted Meng Qi softly. The Skywood Divine Palace had no other choice. When Chu Yao had first come here to cultivate, she had said that she wouldn't be able to stay forever. She cultivated solely for Long Qin. Chu Yao had now formally left the Skywood Divine Palace. Hence, the palace master had no choice but to take away her status as a disciple. However, Chu Yao would always be the apprentice she was proudest of. Suddenly they felt the world shake. Divine light erupted like an exploding sun. Long Chen had left the Skywood Divine Palace's territory and no longer had any misgivings. Evil Moon had suddenly appeared in his hand, and he immediately slashed it at Han Wansheng. The collision of 2 divine items caused a huge explosion that pulled open the curtains to this battle. "Long Chen, I will definitely get vengeance for my granddaughter today." Han Wansheng roared and once more attacked with his sword. His aura was vast like a sea and heavy as a mountain. He was actually a half-step Netherpassage expert. Just half-step Netherpassage. With how arrogant Han Feifei was, I thought you would already be at the Netherpassage realm. I wonder, how is it that people like you with garbage combat power can still be so arrogant toward other people? Long Chen met Han Wansheng's attack with his saber. The immense power shook the land, shocking the others. Long Chen was actually so powerful that he could fight evenly against a half-step Netherpassage expert. He was a monster. A golden spear shot through the air, joining the fray. "Long Chen, return my sons to me." The wielder of this spear was the one Long Chen had just sent flying, Wang Haishan. He had fully recovered and charged back. However, just at that moment, a lithe figure appeared before him. Space twisted strangely, and an invisible blade blocked his path. It sent him flying with a powerful explosive sound. Tang Wan-er had appeared before him, her white dress fluttering around her. Looking at these experts from the southern Xian region, she announced, "The reason why Long Chen killed your experts was because those people were controlled by Shen Bijuan's zither music and were trying to kill him. He acted in self-defense and had no choice but to kill them. This matter bullshit. We refuse to believe it. You're all just as bad as each other. Who would listen to your nonsense story?" Wang Haishan's rage was further provoked upon being blocked by Tang Wan-er, and he charged forward once more, his manifestation appearing behind him. "Since you don't want to believe it, then you can die." Tang Wan-er frowned as she was also enraged. Now she knew why Long Chen couldn't be bothered to explain himself. Explaining had no use against these people. They wouldn't listen no matter what. Tang Wan-er's own manifestation appeared. Within that endless primal chaos was a full moon. Although it was still indistinct, that moon had already formed. When Tang Wan-er's manifestation appeared, for a single moment, it felt like time was standing still. Tang Wan-er's invisible blade slashed down. What shocked everyone was that despite Tang Wan-er being miles away from Wang Haishan, and despite there being no sword image or divine runes, this simple slash caused Wang Haishan to suddenly smash his spear forward with a horrified expression. Boom! Wang Haishan's spear smashed into the air. An invisible existence sent him flying. As he flew back, blood streamed out of a large cut on his chest. Even the soft armor he wore had been cut through. What? Startled cries rang out from the southern Xian region's experts. What kind of magical art was this? An invisible, silent attack that came from miles away? I didn't want to kill you, but you are forcing me. Tang Wan-er stood in the sky, looking down on these experts. This was her warning. Everyone, don't be afraid. This kind of magical art is completely heretical. We have to attack together to get vengeance for our disciples. A white-haired elder roared and took out a shield. Light blossomed from the shield, protecting him as he took the lead to charge toward Tang Wan. Following his actions, other experts roared as well. Their favorite disciples had been slain, so they had to get vengeance. Meng Qi, Chu Yao, Lu Rian, and Cloud were about to join the battle when their attention was suddenly drawn to a gloomy Tang Wan. She slowly pressed her palms against each other. When she pulled them apart, a sphere appeared between her hands. That sphere slowly grew as Tang Wan-er spread her hands. It was translucent and sparkling like a crystal, however, when it appeared, time seemed to stand still. Silence drummed in people's ears, and all those experts quivered. They smelled death from that sphere. There were millions of almost imperceptibly tiny runes dancing within that sphere. They were simply swimming around naturally, yet everyone sensed a fatal danger from them. What kind of magical art is that? The southern Xin region's experts were horrified. They were large powerhouses who were dominating the southern Xian region, and they had lived for countless years. But even they had never seen such a terrifying and bizarre magical art. Wind Spirit Moon Slash. Tang Wan-er's hands suddenly began to shine as she unleashed her sphere. Rumbling filled the air, breaking the silence. Space and time were torn to shreds, and the world was thrown into chaos. Within the Skywood Divine Palace, the palace master and the elders were watching with shock. How could a soul transformation disciple unleash such a terrifying attack? The great era has really arrived. Even the Jade Lake Venerate's 4 great inheritances have been fully inherited after countless years of people only being able to comprehend portions of them. For Tang Wan-er to be able to unleash her wind attribute divine arts just after obtaining her inheritance, she must have mastered part of it. We can finally see the slightest tip of the ancient Jade Lake Venerate's power. The palace master sighed emotionally. But Tang Wan-er's magical art doesn't seem like it's using wind energy. The fluctuations are wrong, said one elder. There is a common saying that wind cultivators must cause a huge gale that shakes the land to display their power, but that's just a common saying. Tang Wan-er's magical art has reached the peak of wind, and it returned to a calm state until she unleashed it. This attack is terrifying, said the palace master. At this time, Tang Wan-er's attack had reached the southern Xian region's experts. The white-haired elder carrying the divine shield was struck first. Boom! The sphere exploded. A vast energy exploded like a volcano. The previously calm sphere had exploded. Millions of tiny wind blades shot out furiously in every direction. The white-haired elder's shield instantly exploded, and the wind blades devoured him, turning him into bloody mist. Even his Yuan spirit was annihilated. She can destroy divine items? The other experts were horrified. They immediately turned around and ran. However, their speed couldn't match the wind blades. They could only unleash their strongest attacks as they fled. Those with divine items were lucky. They only coughed up blood as they were sent flying. However, those who had charged forward to the front without divine items weren't so fortunate. Their bodies were cut through by the wind blades. The unluckiest ones were pierced through the head and died. Tang Wan-er's destructive power was heaven-shaking, and it shocked everyone. If it hadn't been for the white-haired elder's divine shield blocking a portion of the power, it was unknown how many of them would have survived. However, hundreds of Life Star experts were heavily injured, and dozens were killed with this one attack. The survivors looked up in horror at the icy-faced fairy floating in the air. Even Meng Qi, Chu Yao, Cloud, and Lu Ruyan were shocked. Tang Wan was no longer the old Tang Wan. In her current state, she was truly terrifying. She had killed a sect leader who held a divine item, even destroying that divine item. Facing tens of thousands of Life Star experts, Tang Wan was completely domineering, like an icy battle goddess. No one dared to take another step forward. On this side, Tang Wan had intimidated all the southern Xian region's experts to the point that none dared to approach again. On the other side, Long Chen was fighting evenly against the half-step Netherpassage Han Wancheng. What the southern Xian region's experts couldn't accept was that Long Chen was like a ferocious tiger, and he was the one on the offense, forcing Han Wancheng to retreat time and time again. With his divine ring spinning and 5 stars revolving in his eyes, he leaped forward again, slashing Evil Moon down heavily. Long Chen attacked 3 times, each time stronger than the last. On the third one, Han Wancheng coughed up blood and miserably flew back. He lost. Seeing Han Wancheng fly back, the southern Xian region's experts felt their hearts turn cold. That was a half-step Netherpassage expert. He was the one with the highest cultivation base amongst all of them, as well as the strongest. Since he had been forced back by a soul transformation disciple, they couldn't accept it. Long Chen rested Evil Moon on his shoulder. He coldly looked at the shocked and infuriated Han Wancheng. You're only half-step Netherpassage, but your arrogance surpasses a Netherpassage expert. Is this the tradition of your Han family? Do you have no ability other than bullying others? As expected, the young learned from the old. Back then, Han Feifei had been the same, charging forward tyrannically through a crowd. When someone didn't get out of the way fast enough, her people whipped them. Long Chen looked down on people like her the most. They had superiority complexes that had them always crush others to express their own greatness. Han Wancheng had never expected Long Chen to be so powerful. Even though he had used all his power and magical arts, he was being beaten by Long Chen. What infuriated him the most was that Long Chen didn't compete with him in magical arts. Long Chen was like a scoundrel randomly hacking people with his saber. He didn't give Han Wancheng any opportunity to unleash his ultimate attacks. Regretfully, Han Wancheng was not an Empyrean who could have his Yuan spirit form hand seals for him. That would greatly shorten the amount of time required to cast his magical arts. Suddenly, Han Wancheng's expression changed. He took out a dragon-shaped jade plate from his robes, his anger transforming into joy. Long Chen, your death has come. Han Wancheng laughed brazenly as he crushed the jade plate. A pillar of light descended from the sky, and a figure slowly condensed. When the palace master saw that dragon-shaped jade plate, her expression changed. However, she had had no time to warn Chu Yao. A figure slowly appeared within the pillar of light. It was a square-faced, dignified middle-aged man in yellow robes and a violet gold crown. He was large and muscular. His eyes were as sharp as blades, and blood-colored runes flowed within his pupils. It was like his sight could pierce a person's soul. When he appeared, the hair all around Long Chen's body stood on end. He already knew who this person was. Without saying a word, the middle-aged man moved through the air, leaving countless afterimages. He appeared in front of Long Chen without anyone seeing how he had moved. Split the heavens 6. Long Chen, who had already started accumulating energy, slashed his saber. The middle-aged man snorted and raised a hand to block Long Chen's saber. He broke Long Chen's attack easily with just his palm, and Long Chen coughed up a mouthful of blood. The middle-aged man's body shook ever so slightly from Long Chen's attack, and he was a bit surprised. However, his expression quickly returned to normal. He took another step forward, and the world suddenly lost all its color, leaving behind only white and black. There were no other colors other than black and white. When that happened, all the experts turned pale with terror. Life and death energy. This is a Netherpassage expert. Only a Netherpassage expert can control this kind of energy. An almighty Netherpassage expert actually came to handle Long Chen personally? The experts were all struck dumb. They had never imagined that a Netherpassage expert would lower his own status and dignity to attack Long Chen. It had to be known that Long Chen was only a soul transformation disciple. For a Netherpassage expert to attack him was elevating Long Chen's status and turning themselves into a laughingstock. The middle-aged man hadn't said a word. When he summoned his life and death domain, everyone felt that only two types of energy existed in this world now. One was life and one was death. Both those energies were under the control of this middle-aged man. Within this domain, he was a god. He decided who lived and who died. There was no way any of them could resist. Long Chen was completely locked down by this life and death energy. He felt like an invisible hand was gripping his throat, and he couldn't even move or resist. Resisting meant death. Space was frozen. Time was still. That middle-aged man coldly walked over to Long Chen, his right hand reaching for Long Chen's neck. Suddenly, space shook, and an invisible and silent attack came from behind the middle-aged man. It was Tang Wan-er's sneak attack. The middle-aged man didn't even turn around. His left hand reached back, and the wind from the pointing of his finger broke Tang Wan-er's attack. However, just as he crushed Tang Wan-er's attack, the immobile Long Chen suddenly moved. Long Chen's large hand slapped the middle-aged man's face. That clear sound resounded throughout the battlefield. It happened too suddenly, so suddenly that everyone was dazed. It felt like time was moving slow as they witnessed one of the most shocking sights of their lives. Long Chen's palm slapped across the middle-aged man's face, and that dignified man was forced back several steps by the immense power. As for Long Chen, he used that force to retreat. Just as they separated, a powerful bolt of sword chi slashed through the space where the middle-aged man had just been. It was like a celestial blade, a blade of the starry sky. This attack had been to prevent the middle-aged man's attack. However, it was one step too late, as the middle-aged man had already been slapped back. Long Chen retreated a dozen steps, each of his steps causing the ground to crumble beneath him. Although he was the one who had slapped the middle-aged man, the resulting backlash was still difficult for him to bear. His left hand concealed a nail, which he silently put away. That was what he had originally prepared before he had sensed the sword chi. A life and death domain might be able to restrict everyone else, but it wasn't able to restrict him. He didn't know if it was because he had entered purgatory, but this kind of life and death energy couldn't bind him. Before, just to prepare himself, Long Chen had asked the old patriarch, a Netherpassage expert, to use his life and death domain against him. At that time, Long Chen hadn't been able to move a finger. However, it was different this time. He didn't know why, but this life and death energy wasn't able to bind him in his place. Therefore, Long Chen had acted like he was completely bound, just waiting for the middle-aged man to approach carelessly. The middle-aged man was truly terrifying. Long Chen had prepared the nail from the gates of hell, however, just as he had been about to use it, he had changed ideas and switched to the slap that he was most proficient in. Long Chen stabilized himself and looked up to see a woman standing in the air. Her sword was still shining with divine light. That attack had come from her. "Greetings, Alliance Head." Long Chen smiled when he saw that woman and respectfully bowed. She was the head of the Martial Heaven Alliance, Chu Jianing. She had attacked to force back the middle-aged man and save Long Chen. However, Chu Jianing's current expression was very strange. She had been planning to save Long Chen, but Long Chen's slap was outside her expectations. Die! That middle-aged man's dignified face immediately became filled with killing intent, and he pointed a finger. A black and white spear shot out of it, prying apart the void. It was as if all the cosmos's energy was concentrated within this spear, and the laws of life and death revolved around it. This middle-aged man was finally infuriated. "Alliance Head, someone is trying to kill your disciple. You must stand up for your disciple." Long Chen immediately dodged behind Chu Jianing. He knew that this middle-aged man had gone completely crazy. His current cultivation base was too low to block a Netherpassage expert's attack. Chu Jianying was startled but also found it funny that Long Chen was such a madman. This slap might just shake the martial heaven continent. However, at the moment, she had no choice but to focus her attention on the middle-aged man. She also attacked, slashing her sword that also had white and black energy intertwining over it. The attacks of two Netherpassage experts collided. The explosion of life and death energy caused a huge ripple to spread. Long Chen felt a slight pain in his soul, but it quickly went away. However, in the distance, Meng Qi, Chu Yao, and the others all let out a pained groan and fell from the sky. Their Yuan spirits were in intense pain like they were being torn apart. The other experts were no better off, and they all fell from the sky as well, holding their heads and wailing. Their Yuan spirits had been severely injured. A clash of life and death energy causes shockwaves that are very damaging to Yuan spirits. Fortunately, their Yuan spirits are strong enough. Ordinary soul transformation experts would have been killed, said the palace master. She and the other elders of the Skywood Divine Palace were watching from a distance. Palace master, those two are, asked a young elder. She didn't recognize those two and was very curious. They're both figures that can shake heaven and earth, people with the greatest authority in this world. One is the head of the Martial Heaven Alliance, Chu Jianying. As for the other, he's the head of the Ancient Family Alliance, Di Long. This will be troublesome. I didn't expect the Jade Lake pageant to disturb two extraordinary existences like them. I don't know how this matter can be settled. If the two of them were to really start fighting, the entire Martial Heaven continent might become covered in a rain of blood, said the palace master worriedly. Ah, then you mean Long Chen has just slapped the head of the Ancient Family Alliance, exclaimed the young elder before covering her mouth. The palace master sighed inside. Although she had long since heard that Long Chen dared to do anything, and his ability in causing trouble was unmatched beneath the heavens, an existence that was constantly imitated but never surpassed, she had never expected Long Chen to accomplish a feat never before achieved in all of history. Chu Jianying, I must kill him. If you block me, then from now on, your Martial Heaven Alliance will be enemies with my Ancient Family Alliance. Di Long coldly looked at Chu Jianying. He clasped his arms behind him like a dignified emperor. His voice was like a drum resounding through the air, causing people's ears to shake. It contained unquestionable confidence. From the moment Chu Jianying had seen Long Chen slap Di Long, she had sighed inside. She was currently thinking of how to resolve this enmity. After all, the Martial Heaven Alliance was allied with the Ancient Family Alliance. She didn't want to make matters worse. However, Di Long's tone was clearly a kind of order. That provoked her anger as well. She was the leader of the righteous path. Who dared to threaten her? Long Chen is my disciple. No matter what mistake he made, I, Chu Jianying, will help him bear it. If he was really wicked beyond redemption and a disgrace, I would clean up my own door without you interfering. However, if you had someone intentionally provoke and set him up, then you should know my temper. No matter who I should go against, I will get justice for my disciples. Although the time she had known Long Chen was short, Chu Jianying had lived for many years and had seen all sorts of people. She had immediately seen that although Long Chen still possessed the carelessness and temper of youth, he was not an untrustworthy person. It was the opposite. He was someone very worthy of her trust and confidence. Di Long's expression immediately sank. Chu Jianying's attitude was clearly one of not giving a single inch. Reporting to the alliance head, Long Chen viciously slaughtered all the attending disciples of the southern Xian region in the Jade Lake's sacred land. You have to get justice for us. An elder walked over, quivering. He was the southern branch master of the Martial Heaven Alliance. His descendants had also died in the Jade Lake's sacred land. Is this true? Chu Jianying was startled. Long Chen has already personally admitted to it. How could it be false? Sneered Han Wanchong. Long Chen, is it true? Chu Jianying barked at Long Chen. Well, I suppose it's possible that it's likely, maybe true. Long Chen didn't know how to reply. You. Chu Jianying was enraged. Let me first declare that they wanted to kill me, and I had no choice but to fight back. It was well within the bounds of self-defense. Long Chen hastily expressed his innocence. Tell us clearly. With no evil smile, raged Chu Jianing. Only now did Long Chen narrate everything that had happened in the Jade Lake's sacred land, including the trap that Xian and Shen Bijuan had laid for him right from the start. When Long Chen had still managed to fight back, Shen Bijuan had used devil music to control the southern Xian region's experts to attack the Pill Fairy, Tang, Wan-er, and the others. In the end, they had all died to his star fall. What nonsense! We only have your word and one side of the story. Who could believe such a thing? Roared an expert. It's because you wouldn't believe me that I didn't say anything. However, since the Alliance had ordered me, I had no choice. Long Chen shrugged indifferently. You shameless bastard, you killed so many people and still want to act innocent. You're the most shameless bastard in this world. The elusive Music Immortal Palace is one of the protectors of the continent. They have a mission to protect the Martial Heaven continent, so how could they be so sinister? You definitely tried to kill someone for their treasures and then silenced others by killing them. Long Chen, how sinister! If you don't die, the heavens won't be able to rest. We refuse to believe Long Chen's one-sided story. Furthermore, even if they were controlled, how could you kill the innocents? They had lost their minds, but you still killed them. How vicious is your heart? Are you even human? The southern Xian region's experts' roars surged out in waves, each louder than the last. Are you joking? They wanted to kill us. How did we become the vicious ones for killing them? You must have a mental illness. Lu Ruyan couldn't hold back any longer. Slut, shut your mouth. We have to kill Long Chen as vengeance for those departed souls. Otherwise, they'll never be able to rest in peace. Long Chen must die. Lu Ruyan's words provoked those experts' fury even further. I just knew that talking reasonably had no use. That's why I couldn't even be bothered to try. As I said before, either fight or fuck off. Long Chen then turned to Chu Jianing. Alliance head, now you know what happened. I don't like causing trouble, but I'm not afraid of trouble. No matter who tries to kill me, I will fight back with my full power. Right now, as long as you can stall that fellow for 1 incense stick's worth of time, I will make sure these noisy people never open their mouths again. Alliance head, just give me the order. Hearing that, those cursing experts immediately shut their mouths. It felt like a blade was pressed against their throats. Everyone was deathly silent. How could they not be afraid? They were already intimidated by Tang Wan-er's previous attack. When Di Long came, that powerful support made them start shouting for their deaths. However, once Long Chen said this, they all turned green. If Chu Jianing tied down Di Long, then with how tough Long Chen and the others were, who could stop them? Han Wanchang wasn't even able to stop Long Chen, while Tang Wan-er was even more terrifying. Then there was Meng Qi, Chu Yao, Cloud, and Lu Ruyan who hadn't attacked yet. Who knew how powerful their trump cards were? If they started fighting, then their numbers wouldn't save these people. It would probably be a complete collapse on their part. The people who had been cursing the loudest were all mute. If a fight really started, they were afraid of being the first ones targeted by Long Chen and the others. Even 10 lives wouldn't be enough for them then. What an arrogant tone. You should be fortunate you've been in the eastern Xian region all this time. If you came to the central Xian region, you'd have long since lost your life to that arrogance. Shouted Di Long, that really is true. The central Xian region has so many impressively shameless people. Why, even a grand Netherpassage expert personally came to attack me, a little soul transformation disciple. Dying from shame would have been quite normal. I really admire experts who condense all their life's cultivation base into thickening their skin. Just now, my hand even hurt having slapped such thick skin. Admirable, really admirable. Laughed Long Chen. Long Chen looked coldly at Di Long. Even after considering what he had done in the Jade Lake's sacred land, for a Netherpassage expert to actually chase him across regions was far too shameless. The power of Long Chen's words was not one whit lower than the power of his slap. Di Long was shaking with rage. DXIN's 9-line soul calming Jade was a life-protecting talisman with D Long's spiritual mark, allowing D Long to open a spatial channel through it to launch an attack through space and annihilate DXIN's enemies. However, D Long had been too careless in the Jade Lake's sacred land. He hadn't activated his life and death energy to seal space, allowing Tang Wan-er to save them. His attack also roused the core of the Jade Lake's sacred land, and that core had launched an attack to destroy the spatial channel he had created. Fortunately, the southern branch master of the ancient family alliance, Han Wanchong, had a jade plate that D Long could use to give him direct orders. He had charged his way over here to kill Long Qin immediately, but regretfully, Chu Jianying had also come. The fact that he hadn't managed to subdue Long Qin and had instead been slapped in the face was the greatest humiliation of D Long's life. He, a grand Netherpassage expert, had attacked a soul transformation disciple. That in itself was already extremely humiliating. The slap was even worse. Now, these words were like another slap in his face. Even with D Long's calm, veins bulged on his forehead. Long Chen, don't say random things, shouted Chu Jianying. Chu Jianying was actually very apprehensive toward D Long unless she had no choice. She would rather not become hostile with him. D Long, this is a misunderstanding. I understand Long Chen's character, and he has always disdained to lie. I trust what he's saying. Furthermore, that girl from Pill Valley can also testify to it. If Long Chen was lying, he'd quickly be exposed, so he has no reason to lie. Although it might have been a bit vicious to kill those experts, have you considered what you would do if you had been in his place? He and his wives' lives were in danger. If you were in his place, would you just let them die in front of you, or would you protect them? Don't tell me that he could have switched to a different method to have his cake and eat it too. In that kind of critical moment, protecting his own side is an instinct, and that's not wrong. The wrong doesn't lie with Long Chen, but with Shin Bijuan and DXin. D Long, someone with such a respected status like you wouldn't refuse to admit to this, right? Chu Jianying turned to D Long. D Long's expression was gloomy. He had looked over what had happened before coming here. This matter truly had Shin Bijuan and DXin to blame. They were the pens who had taken the initiative to provoke Long Chen. With his status, he couldn't just lie bald-faced. However, to have him admit that this matter was DXIN's fault was definitely impossible. If he admitted to that, his previous attack against Long Chen would become the conduct of a despicable, petty little person. I'm still not clear on the whole sequence of events. DXin has fallen unconscious, and I came over this time mostly to ask Long Chen for the antidote. Long Chen, if you hand over the antidote and my son survives, there will still be room for discussion. If my son dies, then no matter what your reason is, don't even think about getting away alive. Shouted D Long while pointing at Long Chen. The antidote? Chu Jianying and the others were startled. What antidote? Long Chen had merely said that he had injured DXin and made him flee. He hadn't said anything about poison. In the face of D Long's threat, Long Chen suddenly laughed. What a great, unreasonable excuse. Yes, it's truly domineering enough. Then I'll tell you, this thing has no cure. Your son's life and death will just depend on how many sins he has committed in this life. Other than that, don't point your finger at me, as that's very rude. Don't think of me as just some insignificant soul transformation rookie. If you provoke me, you'll find your nest burned to the ground. Long Chen was really angry now. He had been stifling his anger ever since this old bastard had almost killed him, and now this old bastard was threatening him again. What made him lose his temper was D Long saying, no matter your reason. In other words, even if DXIN was the one in the wrong, he would kill Long Chen. In what world was that reasonable? Long Chen was completely infuriated. If D Long said anything more, he decided that he would have his next tribulation in the headquarters of the ancient family alliance. Brat, your arrogance is soaring. D Long laughed furiously. In all his life, this was his first time hearing someone say such a thing to him, and it was someone he could kill with the wave of a hand at that. Long Chen, don't mess around. What poison is affecting DXIN? If you have the antidote, hand it over. This isn't the time to be messing around, ordered Chu Jianying. Chu Jianying knew Di Xian's name. He was the most spoiled of Di Long's sons. That wasn't just because of his talent, but because Di Xian's mother was an extremely large figure in her own right. Even Di Long had to concede to her somewhat. Although Long Chen had slain the southern Xian region's top disciples, the fault stemmed from the elusive music immortal palace, and it would be carried by them. That way, Long Chen's responsibility for this matter would shrink. However, if Di Xian died, this matter would grow even bigger to the point that even Chu Jianying was apprehensive of the consequences. That was why she wanted Long Chen to hand over the antidote. After all, he was an alchemist, and refining some poison pills wasn't difficult for him. Alliance Head, there really is no antidote, as that thing wasn't brewed by me. It is something I obtained in a strange place. Even I don't know its origins, answered Long Chen respectfully. After all, Chu Jianying was the old man's close friend. Long Chen viewed her as an aunt. If he dared to be rude to her, the old man would come flying back from the Netherpassage realm and give him a spanking. Furthermore, Chu Jianying viewed Long Chen as family. Long Chen was fearless toward other experts, but he had to be respectful in this kind of relationship. Nonsense. That thing contains boundless death qi that even invades a person's Yuan spirit. How could you possibly not know what it is? If you didn't know, you'd have long since been poisoned to death. Roared Di Long furiously. He was extremely anxious. Although he had invited expert healers, he hadn't received any news about their results. They had most likely yet to find a way to control the poison. If Di Long had wanted Long Chen dead from the start, Long Chen would have long since died. What he wanted was to capture Long Chen and force him to hand over the antidote. That was what resulted in Di Long being slapped. But now wasn't the time to quibble about that. Getting the antidote was a more pressing matter. Chu Jianying was also anxious now. This was no joking matter. But looking at Long Chen's appearance, it didn't seem like he was lying. She couldn't help but ask, "Where did you get it then?" "It's this." Long Chen took out a jade bottle and handed it to Chu Jianying. When Chu Jianying opened the bottle, her expression completely changed. "This is..." She recognized this. When she had gone into the netherworld, she had used a spiritual seal to preserve her memories before the gates of hell. Although she hadn't crossed the Black Lake, she had seen the black waterfall in the whirlpool, and she still remembered the death qi that came from it. Seeing this death spirit water, she was filled with disbelief. "Well, what is it?" demanded Di Long. Chu Jianying handed the bottle to Di Long. Although Chu Jianying knew what it was, she didn't press Long Chen for answers. She didn't even use a spiritual message as she was afraid of Di Long sensing it. "What is this? How can it have such a dense death aura? This kind of sinister thing is something only the corrupt path could have. Speak, are you colluding with the corrupt path?" Di Long saw a dozen drops of the death spirit water inside the bottle. Even he sensed danger from it. It was no wonder Di Xian hadn't been able to block it. "Can you think before speaking? Is your head only there to eat crap? Even if I wanted to collude with the corrupt path, would they collude with me?" sneered Long Chen. His huge, irreconcilable enmity with the corrupt path was well known. The corrupt path wished to kill him in the most painful way possible. Him colluding with them was a huge joke. Although Tang Wan-er knew that now definitely wasn't the time to laugh, a chuckle still managed to escape from her lips. Meng Qi and Chu Yao were bitterly enduring. Lu Rian's expression was as icy as ever, while Cloud was too pure to understand what was happening. "Long Chen, don't be rude." Chu Jianying also wanted to laugh. This little brat's cursing skill was quite amazing, however, she managed to endure it. "Perhaps my Skywood Divine Palace can help with this matter." In the midst of this extremely awkward atmosphere, the palace master slowly entered the conversation. The palace master of the Skywood Divine Palace walked over and bowed slightly toward Chu Jianying and Di Long. Whether it was in terms of cultivation base, status, or seniority, she was not on the same level as them, so she had to greet them as a junior. "Palace master, you have a way? Wonderful." Chu Jianying was delighted. As long as Di Xian didn't die, things would be easy to handle. "I'll have to thank you for this." If you can really guarantee that my son will be fine, I, Di Long, will owe you a favor. Di Long's expression also softened. The palace master shook her head slightly. She received the jade bottle from Di Long and sniffed it lightly. This is no evil water. It is something condensed by death energy. Rather than saying it is poison, it would be better to call it a manifestation of a law. Long Chen is correct. There is no way to resolve this kind of energy. My Skywood Divine Palace has a heavenly spirit divine tree that I can lend to you. With its life energy, it can dilute this death energy. However, I would estimate that even the heavenly spirit divine tree would only be able to suppress it. Actually expelling it would be very difficult. Nevertheless, I'm confident that as long as it can be suppressed, you have your own way to expel it, correct? Yes, as long as it can be suppressed, everything will be easier to handle, said Di Long hastily. A translucent sphere appeared in the palace master's hand. What startled Long Chen was that this little sphere contained a giant space. Within it was a tree. That tree was extremely strange. It was clearly a heaven-soaring tree with only 3 branches, each with only 1 leaf. It was like a sapling that had just sprouted. Although it was encased in its own mysterious barrier, Long Chen could still sense endless life energy coming from it. Just breathing it in relaxed one's whole body. This was definitely a treasure. This is the heavenly spirit divine tree. These trees have gone extinct on the Martial Heaven continent, and only my Skywood Divine Palace has 3 of them left. Today, I will lend you one so that young Master Xian can be cured earlier. Let us exchange hostility for friendship. The reason the palace master was lending Di Long the heavenly spirit divine tree was twofold. One reason was because this matter had occurred in the Skywood Divine Palace, and as the host, she couldn't stay out of it. The other reason was because she truly did not want to see the Martial Heaven Alliance start fighting the Ancient Family Alliance. If these 2 large forces started a fight, rivers of blood would flow. No one would be able to suppress the corrupt path. The Martial Heaven continent had entered the Great Era, and heavenly geniuses were springing up like young bamboo after rain. Powerful existences were rising all at the same time. There was the corrupt path right in front of them, while there were also neutral forces like the ancient races, Shen beasts, Bloodkill Hall, and more. They were like tigers lying in wait. The righteous path had internal troubles and plenty of external ones as well. Many thanks for your assistance. Once my son is healed, I will definitely come personally to thank you. Di Long received the heavenly spirit divine tree. He was about to leave. Hold it, said Chu Jianyi. What? Could it be that you wish to exchange a few pointers against me? Seeing Chu Jianyi block him, Di Long's suppressed rage flared once more. There's no need for that. You are just a clone and don't have the qualifications to challenge me, said Chu Jianyi coldly. I'm simply asking how you plan on handling this matter. That elusive music immortal palace's Shin Bijuan was so malicious. Although Long Chen killed her already, this huge calamity the southern Shen region went through was all caused by the elusive music immortal palace. Are you not planning on demanding an explanation from them? The matter of the Jade Lake sacred land was too huge. The responsibility would have to be borne by someone. Otherwise, if things were simply left like this, it would make her, the Alliance head, appear useless. This matter was caused by Long Chen, so the responsibility should be borne by the Martial Heaven Alliance. It has nothing to do with my Ancient Family Alliance. We are only victims, sneered Di Long. Chu Jianying's meaning was clear. The 2 of them should go find the elusive music immortal palace for an explanation. It was their disciple that had caused this, so they had to accept the responsibility. Whether it was compensation or just an apology, they had to follow through. However, the elusive music immortal palace's foundation was frightening, and they were also one of the protectors of the Martial Heaven continent. Even Chu Jianying didn't want to offend them, so she wanted to pull Di Long in. However, Di Long actually refused, pushing the responsibility onto Chu Jianying, even saying that she was at fault. How could she possibly accept that while he acted like the victim? Bullshit, we're the victims. Don't tell me that if Long Chen and Xian's positions were reversed, you would say Xian was at fault for striking back at Long Chen. How did it become our responsibility? Raged Chu Jianying. Di Long indifferently said, "As far as I'm concerned, this whole disaster originated from Long Chen." Shen Bijuan's love for him turned into hatred. As for what Long Chen did to Shen Bijuan, who knows? How he played with her emotions is impossible to know. Shen Bijuan is one of the elusive Music Immortal Palace's top 2 disciples, so she's definitely no fool. For her to do something so crazy, can you say for sure it's unrelated to Long Chen? Who would believe that? Long Chen didn't properly handle his own relationships, implicating everyone else. Even if he had to act out of self-defense to kill those people, he also has unavoidable responsibility for their deaths. As for my ancient family alliance and the other sects, they're the real victims. You and the elusive Music Immortal Palace are the ones who have to take responsibility for this matter. I have no time to waste talking to you. If my son is healed, then I'll leave this be, but if anything happens to him, you should just wait to endure my rage. Di Long became covered in divine runes. Space twisted around him as he vanished from everyone's sight. Why don't you go fuck yourself? Di Long left, leaving all the responsibility on Chu Jianying, making her break out cursing. The southern Xian region's experts didn't dare to make a sound. They were all old foxes and saw that this was a competition of power between 2 huge hegemons. They knew that with Chu Jianying present, killing Long Chen as vengeance for their disciples was an impossibility. The ones to blame were clear. The majority of the blame fell to the elusive Music Immortal Palace. As for Long Chen, he had a bit of the blame, but it was very small. Just that little bit wasn't enough for them to demand his death. These experts were infuriated. Their disciples were all killed, but they didn't know who they were supposed to find for vengeance. Di Long had left. Even without Chu Jianying present, they wouldn't dare to try and kill Long Chen. That was purely courting death. They all looked at each other. In the end, they silently left. Staying here was meaningless, as it would only make them lose more face. Alliance Head, the southern branch master of the Martial Heaven Alliance, came forward respectfully. "You can go. I'll handle this." Chu Jianying flapped her hand. "Yes." In the end, all those experts left, leaving behind only Chu Jianying, the Skywood Divine Palace's master, as well as Long Chen and the others. Chu Jianying's expression was frighteningly dark. She slowly turned to look at Long Chen, who immediately felt a chill and put on a hasty smile. "Alliance Head, hello. After several months, you've grown even more beautiful." Long Chen was in the midst of carefully sucking up when Chu Jianying's hand reached out like lightning, grabbing his ear and twisting. "Oh, it hurts. Alliance Head, it hurts. Alliance Head, I was wrong." Long Chen didn't know what Chu Jianying was doing, but it felt like a needle was stabbing his ear. "Little brat, you don't feel shame crying it hurts. I'm the one with the headache." Chu Jianying ignored Long Chen's pleas for mercy. Meng Qi, Chu Yao, Tang Wan-er, and the others couldn't help but find it funny upon seeing Long Chen in such a miserable plight for the first time. "Alliance Head, my wives are right there. They'll get jealous of your unsuitable actions," cried Long Chen. "Bullshit, I'm old enough to be your great-grandaunt. Furthermore, just based on my relationship with your old man, you'd have to call me auntie." "What would they get jealous of?" raged Chu Jianying. "And, do your best. We definitely won't get jealous. It just so happens we want to learn your great techniques. Please, go ahead and show them all so we can learn." Tang Wan-er immediately walked forward with an excited smile. I have always loved you so much, but you..." Long Chen didn't even know how he was supposed to express his indignation and grief. Who asked you to be so fickle-hearted?" Tang Wan-er sniffed and turned her nose up at him. Seeing the usually threatening Long Chen like a little cat in Chu Jianying's hand, Meng Qi and the others heartlessly laughed. "Senior Chu, why don't you come and have a seat in the Skywood Divine Palace?" said the palace master. "No, I have a crapload of things to handle, and this little brat just gave me even more things to do. Fuck, I'm pissed." Chu Jianying twisted her hand harder, making Long Chen shout louder. Chu Jianying was truly powerful, but it actually wasn't enough to make Long Chen so miserable. However, Long Chen knew that since Chu Jianying was helping him handle this matter, it would be best to let her vent. If he didn't act pitiable, who knew whether she would switch to an even worse punishment? Chu Jianying had the same temper as the old man. If he acted too manly now, he didn't know whether his but would be turning a bright shade of red in a bit or not. A man who knew how to bend flexibly was a proper man. The palace master nodded and walked over to Chu Yao. She tidied Chu Yao's hair a bit and gently said, "You're a kind child. To tell the truth, I am really unwilling to let you enter a world filled with blood." "Master, good child, the baby bird grows each day in the nest so that it can one day soar through the sky. This day will come sooner or later. It was my fault for saying these things that shouldn't be said. Take care of yourself. Although you aren't a disciple of the Skywood Divine Palace anymore, I will forever be your master. If you are tired one day, come and find me." Although the palace master did her best to control herself, her eyes reddened. After saying that, she turned and left. Looking at her back, Chu Yao's tears streamed down her face. Meng Qi and Tang Wan-er could only comfort her. "Let's find somewhere quiet so I can properly put you in your place." Chu Jianying finally released Long Chen, but her expression was still very fierce. They left the Skywood Divine Palace and flew on a flying boat for an hour before stopping in a secluded mountain range. "Brat, where did you get that black water?" Chu Jianying looked at Long Chen. She had been really shocked. She almost didn't believe it. Tang Wan-er and the others were also curious. They had seen how terrifying that black water was, and Chu Yao especially had felt great fear for it. That was an instinctive repulsion. They all looked at Long Chen intently, wanting to know. "In truth, you know what it is." "Your guess is correct," said Long Chen. "Then you mean, don't tell me that." Chu Jianying immediately thought of a possibility. However, that was even harder to believe. "Hee, the old man brought me in for a stroll. You know that hard-working men like us have to help each other." Chu Jianying cursed. "That old bastard, he brought a little bastard like you in. Do you both want to lose your lives?" Although Long Chen was alive and well, she still felt it was crazy that Long Chen had entered the netherworld with the old man. What pissed her off the most was that, disregarding Long Chen who was still young, the old man had actually agreed to do something so foolish. "Long Chen, what are you talking about?" asked Meng Qi. "Can I tell the truth?" Long Chen looked at Chu Jianying. "They are the people closest to you. Whether you say it or not, they are affected by your karma. Why would your guts only shrink now?" snorted Chu Jianying irritably. Long Chen laughed mischievously and explained how he had gone into the netherworld with the old man. However, he didn't dare to mention anything about purgatory. Of course, he also didn't mention Xie Qianqian to avoid Tang Wan-er beating him out of jealousy. Long Chen didn't say how much death spirit water he had. He only said that he had used it against DXN. In any case, Long Chen didn't care about DXN. With the death spirit water, Long Chen could easily play him to death, so Long Chen had already removed DXN from the list of people he had to kill. "You are both crazy." Chu Jianying shook her head. She could only give this appropriate evaluation. "Alliance head, do you really not remember anything about things past the gates of hell?" asked Meng Qi. Chu Jianying shook her head. "No, not even a trace. Although I properly segmented my memories and sealed them using a secret art, the majority of them were still fully erased. I have shown you what I managed to retain, which is what happened before the gates of hell. Perhaps this is just a kind of law that cannot be stopped. However, even when it comes to things outside the gates of hell, if there's no need to, it would be best if you didn't spread it. Even that has karmic implications." They all nodded. This was a kind of law above the heavenly Daos, a law related to the riddles of life and death. They had to be respectful of it. "Alliance head, did you come specifically to save me?" probed Long Chen. "Tisich, I'm not a god. How could I know you would provoke such a calamity?" As soon as this was mentioned, Chu Jianying's fire was stoked. "Alliance head, calm down. You don't want to get an ulcer." Meng Qi and Chu Yao hastily tried to calm her down. Seeing them hold Chu Jianying back, Long Chen felt grateful. This was what a family should do. "You little brat, you really piss me off this time. The matter of the Eastern Xian region isn't even fully settled yet, But you already caused such a thing in the southern Xian region. Will you die if you don't cause any trouble? Chu Jianying glared at Long Chen. But this wasn't my fault. If it was the old man or even you in my place, you would have annihilated those sect leaders who came at the end, right? So I've already done well. Long Chen shrugged helplessly. Although he wasn't sure about Chu Jianying, he knew that if it was the old man, he would have immediately exploded when the explanation didn't work and killed all those people. Brat, do you think I'm so unreasonable? Raged Chu Jianying. Long Chen looked at Chu Jianying without saying anything. Meng Qi, Chu Yao, and the others also looked at her oddly. Clearly, when Chu Jianying's fury was provoked, she wasn't that reasonable. Only when she saw those odd expressions did Chu Jianying's expression soften. I received notice from the Devil Abyss that the barrier between worlds is continuing to weaken. The channel in the Devil Abyss is slowly opening. When the time comes, all 5 regions in the Central Plains will face an attack at the same time. As long as there are defenders, this isn't particularly difficult to deal with. However, the Eastern Xian region's experts have practically been annihilated by you. Just what is the Eastern Xian region supposed to bring out to defend with? Furthermore, all the Eastern Xian region's sects are heavily injured, and when I went to alert them that they were to gather their forces to face the devil race, they said they had no one available and capable of fighting a battle on that level. They even said since the Dragonblood Legion thought itself unrivaled, I should just send the Dragonblood Legion and that would be enough. Fuck. Not only are the Martial Heaven Alliance's direct subordinates acting like this, but even the Ancient Family Alliance is making excuses. I went to the Shen-Tian-Dao sect to find you, but Li Tianxian said you came to the Jade Lake pageant. I had a bad feeling as soon as I heard that and rushed over just in time. But now you've really done it. Not only does this problem exist in the Eastern Xian region, but even the Southern Xian region is gravely wounded. Little brat, even conners don't con people like this. Chu Jianying had a belly full of fire but was helpless about it. She could only blame her own unfortunate fate. How did she end up with such a troublesome subordinate? Not only were the Southern Xian region's elites annihilated, but Long Chen had also slapped Di Long in the face. Right now, Di Long had no time to bother with Long Chen as he was in a rush to save his son, but once he had time, he would definitely come back. After all, he was a Netherpassage expert and the leader of the Ancient Family Alliance. Having been slapped, if he didn't kill Long Chen, he would never be able to leave his room with his head raised again. Thinking of that, Chu Jianying had an urge to die. One hole had yet to be filled before Long Chen gave her a new one. I won't accept responsibility for what happened in the Southern Xian region. That's Shen Bijuan's problem, so you should leave it to the elusive Music Immortal Palace. As for the Eastern Xian region, can I ask one question? If I can handle the invading devil race on my own, all the rewards for doing so will be mine, correct? As soon as Long Chen mentioned rewards, his eyes began to shine. He currently needed a great deal of money to reconstruct the Shen-Tian-Dao sect. Seeing that unscrupulous expression, with his eyes practically shining like spirit crystals, Chu Jianying snorted. If you could handle the devil race on your own, then all the Eastern Xian region's rewards would go to you. But you don't have that ability. Really? Even if I'm not enough, I still have my Dragonblood Legion. We can definitely overcome any adversaries. Long Chen patted his chest confidently. You're thinking too simply. The Martial Heaven continent might have entered a great era, but this is a chain reaction. The devil race's side is also entering their great era. While our side gains experts in droves, their side is also growing in power. The devil race must be giving rise to powerful geniuses. Furthermore, this eruption of the devil abyss will be unprecedented. You know about your Shen-Tian-Dao sect's devil abyss, correct? That's just one channel given to your Shen-Tian-Dao sect to defend. All the large sects have their own branch that they are protecting. Tens of thousands of sects are working together, spreading out the devil race and blocking them. However, there will be no way to control the upcoming eruption. You'll have to go down the main channel to fight. If the devil race's army manages to charge out of the channel, Life Star experts will be able to kill them, and there are also formations present to stop them. However, only soul transformation experts and below can enter the channel. 10,000 of your dragon blood warriors is just a drop in the bucket compared to the endless devil race army. You have no idea how terrifying they are. The reason these sects are refusing to help definitely has the shadow of Pill Valley behind it. They are choosing to watch by the sidelines so they can laugh while the devil army charges past you in the main channel, and now you actually say such a thing? Tell me, are you asking for a beating? Alliance head, I don't know what that devil race army is, but the main point is money. As long as there's money, you can rest assured that I can handle the Eastern Xian region's side. I guarantee to handle it perfectly, said Long Chen confidently. Really? Chu Jianying was a bit surprised to see him so confident. She was no longer so sullen. How could I dare to lie to you? However, as family, you should know how to repay me for handling the entire Eastern Xian region. Little brat, who's your family? However, if you really can handle it alone, then I guarantee to give you a reward based on how many devil creatures you kill, promised Chu Jianying. Good, then just watch. I'll handle this so perfectly that, about that, I am a bit tight on cash recently. Can you give me a tiny advance on that reward? Long Chen bashfully smiled and extended a hand. Scram. You haven't even done anything, and you want a reward? As if Chu Jianying slapped Long Chen's hand away, causing Meng Qi and the others to laugh. All right, you should return to the Eastern Xian region and prepare yourselves for the eruption of the Devil Abyss. I'm going to take a trip to the elusive Music Immortal Palace. I'll have to ask what exactly they were doing. When she mentioned the elusive Music Immortal Palace, Chu Jianying's expression sank again. Chu Jianying left. Matters like defending against the invasion of the devil race were the responsibility of the Martial Heaven Alliance. This was the convention followed for countless years. However, now there were problems. That was due to the fracturing between the Martial Heaven Alliance and the Ancient Family Alliance. The main cause of this fracture was Long Chen. Last time, the two sides had started becoming unhappy after the dragon slaughtering convention. Back then, due to Pill Valley pulling the strings behind the scenes, although the two didn't start a fight, the crack between them had been formed. As for this time, even two huge hegemons like Di Long and Chu Jianying had gone face to face. The Ancient Family Alliance might stop supporting the Martial Heaven continent because of it. This was all caused by Shinbijuan. Chu Jianying definitely had to go to have a conversation with the elusive Music Immortal Palace. Once Chu Jianying left, Long Chen obediently used a flying boat to travel toward the Eastern Xian region. However, there was now one person missing. Lu Rian had returned to Chu Yao's spiritual space. It was unknown if it was because she didn't like looking at Long Chen that she left. Meng Qi, Chu Yao, Tang Wan, and Cloud were all talking and laughing. Cloud was holding Long Chen's arm. Cloud had just learned how to transform and was still learning how the human race conversed. Sometimes, she would suddenly say something bizarre that made them laugh. Cloud would often blush and try to listen more. Long Chen, I've obtained the Wind Inheritance. My future accomplishments will have no limit, so you should treat me a bit better in the future so that I look after you. Tang Wan-er suddenly patted Long Chen on the shoulder in a carefree manner, looking like she was no longer the old Tang Wan. Tang Wan-er had clearly lost her old suppressed resentment and gained confidence as well as optimism. This was the result of her power shooting up. Is that so? Since a heroine has opened her chest to me, I won't be courteous. Long Chen laughed mischievously and hugged Tang Wan. What are you doing? Cried Tang Wan. I'm expressing how people should speak from the heart, laughed Long Chen. Then, you're touching my heart? Hurry up and let go. Although she had done similar intimate acts with Long Chen, those were in private and certainly not in broad daylight with Meng Qi, Chu Yao, and Cloud watching. Her whole body felt soft as she didn't know how to resist. The previously intimidating bad wolf had now become a cute little rabbit. Tang Wan was as red as an apple as she fled. Chu Yao and Meng Qi were also red. They cursed Long Chen for being a rogue and doing something so immoral. Long Chen laughed, very pleased with himself. He had finally gotten some revenge. When Chu Jianying had been punishing him, Tang Wan had looked so pleased. Now he finally took back the advantage. He found that when it came to women, as long as he was shameless enough, he definitely wouldn't be at a disadvantage. Long Chen, don't mess around. Cloud is still a child, and it's broad daylight, scolded Meng Qi. Broad daylight? Meng Qi, are you telling me it's all right at night? Long Chen laughed wickedly. Meng Qi, Chu Yao, and Tang Wan-er all turned red upon seeing his perverted expression. Long Chen, you scoundrel! How can you be so shameless? The three of them raised their fists at the same time and gave Long Chen a flurry of punches. Long Chen laughed, completely pleased with himself. How is this shameless? Look at the nice mountains and water, the white clouds in the sky. With such beautiful women beside me, isn't it very natural to start fantasizing? Laughed Long Chen. Unexpectedly, as soon as he said this, Tang Wan-er immediately turned hostile and glared at him. Little brat, as expected, you're thinking about other women. What are you talking about? Asked a startled Long Chen. You think you can trick me? You clearly like that Han Feifei. Could it be you like her so much that even though she's already dead, you're still thinking about her? Speak, why do you want to fantasize about her? Tang Wan-er grabbed Long Chen fiercely. Long Chen almost coughed up blood. He had just randomly said something, and Tang Wan-er had ended up connecting that to Han Feifei. Where did that come from? Meng Qi and Chu Yao laughed. They knew Tang Wan-er was intentionally finding trouble for Long Chen. After laughing, Tang Wan-er suddenly asked, Long Chen, you said that you have a method to upgrade our Yuan spirits. Is that true or not? We also want a powerful Yuan spirit like yours. When Long Chen's Yuan spirit was mentioned, they all looked at him enviously. That was their first time seeing Long Chen's Yuan spirit come out and fight. He had actually gone against a divine item barehanded. Hee, let me show you something. Long Chen closed the windows of the flying boat and took out a large stone. When they saw that stone, Meng Qi was the first to let out a startled cry. Her soul energy was the strongest, so she could directly sense the vast spiritual strength within this blood-colored crystal. That spiritual strength was boundless like a sea, and its purity had reached a kind of pinnacle. Even her own spiritual strength was starting to surge just from being this close to it. Her soul energy was already starting to show signs of rising without even trying to absorb it. What is this? Meng Qi was startled and delighted. The spiritual strength within this stone could actually be absorbed without any resistance. This was huge to Meng Qi. It had to be known that a person's spiritual strength normally had to be upgraded passively. It was mainly based on one's natural talent. Hard work had a limit when it came to spiritual strength. Natural treasures that could increase a person's spiritual strength this much were incredibly rare. The exceptions were things from the corrupt path, which were made by extracting other people's souls. However, absorbing those also resulted in absorbing a terrifying amount of resentment. As your soul energy increased, you would also become bloodthirsty and crazy. So upgrading one's spiritual strength was far too difficult. Spiritual strength was the main foundation for nourishing the Yuan spirit. Someone with weak spiritual strength couldn't possibly have a powerful Yuan spirit. After all, the size of the water decided how large a fish could be raised. There was no such thing as a whale raised in a washbowl. This is a blood soul stone. I got it from the netherworld. Long Chen had kept this information back from Chu Jianing. It wasn't that he didn't trust her, but that sometimes when he was about to say certain things, he would feel a vague unease. He guessed that it might involve some kind of karma. However, he didn't feel a similar kind of danger when it came to Meng Qi and the others, so he told the truth. The spiritual strength inside is as vast as a sea. It will allow us to increase our spiritual strength by a whole level. That will make our attacks even sharper, said Tang Wan-er excitedly. If it was just a matter of increasing spiritual strength, I wouldn't have taken the risk to get it. This blood soul stone is the only treasure that can allow someone to recondense their Yuan spirit. The energy inside it is split between blood and soul. However, after being cleansed and purified, these two kinds of energy can be directly absorbed without the slightest flaws. As long as you have enough spiritual Yuan, by absorbing these two kinds of energy, you can recondense your essence, qi, and soul to upgrade your Yuan spirit. It can be said that this blood soul stone is a heaven-defying treasure, said Long Chen. For this blood soul stone, Long Chen had almost lost his life. The information about it was something Xie Qianqian had taught him. Her all-devil star field produced this thing, so she had plenty of experience with it. Recondense our Yuan spirit? Then can our Yuan spirits become as powerful as yours? Asked Tang Wan-er. I don't know. It will be based on each person's limit, said Long Chen truthfully. Back when Xie Qianqian had been present, he had asked that very question, and her reply was that recondensing the Yuan spirit the second time would make it reach its strongest possible state. However, putting it another way, it meant that it would allow the Yuan spirit to grow to its limit. A tree might grow to 300 meters, but a sunflower couldn't possibly reach the same height no matter how many times you tried planting it. So since each person's innate talent was different, it would be based on their potential. Well, when I condensed my Yuan spirit, I had 8,700,000 primordial runes. Doesn't that mean my limit won't be much higher? Tang Wan-er couldn't help being disappointed. 8,700,000 was a shocking number, but beside Tang Wan-er was Chu Yao, who possessed an even stronger soul and had condensed 19 million runes. As for Meng Qi, she was even more terrifying, having condensed 47 million runes. Amongst the three of them, Tang Wan-er's soul was the weakest. Not only that, but her cultivation base, combat power, and Yuan spirit had been the weakest amongst them, making her feel inferior. That was why Meng Qi had called Long Chen over to make sure that Tang Wan-er could obtain the wind inheritance no matter what. Otherwise, it might have formed a heart devil in her. However, although she had obtained the wind inheritance, having such a weak Yuan spirit still displeased Tang Wan-er. Meng Qi sensed that and changed the subject. Long Chen, how many primordial runes did you have when you condensed your Yuan spirit? Me? I'm embarrassed to say. Tell us. We aren't afraid of receiving an impact. Meng Qi winked, her meaning clear. Having all three of them receive an impact was much better than just Tang Wan-er feeling inferior. Well, the main thing was that they were truly curious about how many runes Long Chen had condensed. Long Chen gave Meng Qi a thumbs up inside. My Yuan spirit didn't have that many primordial runes. It's actually a bit embarrassing to say it. Back then, I wasn't too confident and only randomly condensed it. Now I regret it. I should have tried to condense more, sighed Long Chen regretfully. You didn't use your full power at that time? Are you a fool? How could you get sloppy when it came to something as major as condensing a Yuan spirit? Demanded Tang Wan. Meaning Qi smiled slightly. She understood Long Chen far too well, and as expected, Long Chen shrugged and helplessly said, back then, I felt that 1,080,000,000 primordial runes were enough, so I stopped trying. 1,080,000,000? Although Meng Qi was prepared, even she was stunned by this number. Tang Wan-er was stunned, and she suddenly beat Long Chen. You bastard, you're toying with me. They were in the midst of laughing when the flying boat shook. They had entered the ancient battlefield. The spatial fluctuations were growing. Long Chen, what is it? Meng Qi suddenly noticed that Long Chen's gaze had sharpened. That light was a bit frightening. Someone's waiting for us. Long Chen stopped the flying boat and flew out. Toward the surrounding chaotic space, he shouted, Di Long, I didn't think you were so enthusiastic to send yourself straight to me. Meng Qi and the others were startled. They hastily looked around. However, all they saw was the chaotic space. It was impossible to see anything. This place was the ancient battlefield. The surroundings were always like this. They didn't sense anything strange. Little bastard, you're quite vigilant. Di Long's voice rang out. Space twisted, and Di Long appeared in front of the flying boat. Meng Qi and the others' expressions changed. They hadn't expected Di Long to be waiting for them here. Chu Jianying had told them to be careful before leaving. They shouldn't think that just because they were powerful, they could challenge Netherpassage experts. The true Netherpassage realm was far stronger than half-step Netherpassage. There was an uncrossable divide between the two. Even if Long Chen could defeat the half-step Netherpassage Han Wanchong, he would still die to Di Long. He probably wouldn't even be able to receive a single blow. However, who would have thought that Di Long would appear in their path right after Chu Jianying left? They instantly fell into a definite death situation. Old bastard, you're also not bad. You actually pushed all the responsibility onto Senior Chu Jianying so that she would be forced to go to the elusive music immortal palace. As for us, we have to hurry back to the eastern Xian region to handle the eruption of the Devil Abyss. I suppose you've already entrusted someone with sending the Heavenly Spirit Divine Tree back, while your disappearance was just to fool us, correct? Said Long Chen indifferently. Long Chen didn't find it too curious to find Di Long blocking their path. He had slapped Di Long in the face. With the Heavenly Spirit Divine Tree, Di Long didn't have any more misgivings. As long as he was given an opportunity, he would definitely make sure that Long Chen vanished from this world. Being smart is useless. Today, you'll definitely die. Di Long took a single step before slamming a palm at Long Chen. Black and white ripples spread from him as the space was filled with life and death energy. It was like in that instance, the life and death of everything in this domain was under his control. Di Long still had one arm behind his back. His attack looked effortless, however, there was a terrifying power condensed within his palm. Even a clone dares to be so arrogant? Long Chen summoned his divine ring and battle armor. He slashed Evil Moon at Di Long, split the heavens 6. This is a good move, but sadly the user is too weak. Di Long disdainfully smiled. His movements didn't change at all, and he blocked Long Chen's attack with a simple palm strike. Boom. Long Chen felt like his saber had landed on a star. His arms shook, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Ignorant brat, the power Netherpassage experts can control is no longer just energy, but law. With your pitiful power, how can you block me? Foolish to the peak. Although that was what came out of his mouth, Di Long was actually a bit surprised. His palm should have blown Long Chen to pieces, leaving behind only his Yuan spirit. The power of Long Chen's physical body was something Di Long had never witnessed before. Di Long's body shook. The world turned dark and then suddenly turned bright. Di Long appeared right in front of Long Chen, seeming like the ruler of this world. His palm was unavoidable. Space had been fully compressed. His life and death domain was at full power, locking Long Chen down. Long Chen wildly vomited blood, and Evil Moon went flying out of his grip. He was finally experiencing the terror of Netherpassage experts. Chu Jianying was correct. They truly weren't something he could currently fight against. You're the one who's foolish to the peak. Have a taste of my fist. Long Chen's eyes turned red as he unleashed all his power into a punch. Insignificant. Di Long looked at Long Chen's deathbed struggle with disdain. There was an uncrossable gap between them. No matter how Long Chen struggled, it was useless. Long Chen's fist met Di Long's palm. As a result, Long Chen's arm deformed, breaking into an unknown number of segments. He wildly coughed up blood and was smashed into the ground. Di Long was about to say something after sending Long Chen flying when his expression completely changed. A burst of pain came from his palm, and he saw a black nail in it now. Haha, Di Long, how's the taste of this nail? Half of Long Chen's bones were broken, but he still laughed wildly. He had intentionally looked like he had gone insane to bait Di Long into attacking. The nail had been hidden in his hand, and he had unleashed it the instant he had met Di Long's palm. Di Long was a Netherpassage expert, and this was his life and death domain. Everything here was under his control, and none of Long Chen's actions could escape his senses. However, this nail didn't give off any fluctuations. Di Long hadn't sensed it and had been struck. Di Long was shocked. His blood turned black in the blink of an eye. He was also shocked to find that he couldn't move. His entire body was rigid. Meng Qi, Chu Yao, and the others were also stunned. They saw Di Long's entire body turning black. He was emitting a strong air of death, and all his vitality was fading. What is this? Di Long was infuriated. He had seen many things in his life, but he had never seen such a terrifying concealed weapon. His jaw suddenly cracked and fell from his head. It landed on the ground, transforming into black dust. Idiot, do you think I'd tell you? Sneered Long Chen. But in truth he was also shocked. He had known that this nail from the gates of hell should be terrifying. After all, when he had accidentally cut just the outer layer of his skin, to the point that he didn't even bleed, his finger had immediately turned pitch black. If it hadn't been for Evil Moon cutting off his finger, the consequences would have been too terrible to imagine. He hadn't expected that even a Netherpassage expert would be helpless against it. He had thought that it would simply cause Di Long some trouble and give Long Chen a chance to run. However, even a Netherpassage was unable to move once pierced by this nail. In just a breath, Di Long's body became covered in cracks, and his body fell to the ground piece by piece, transforming into black dust. How is this possible? Roared Di Long. He tried to struggle, but he couldn't even move as his body shattered. His Yuan spirit couldn't escape either. His eyes gradually turned black like coal. With a bang, Di Long's body exploded, transforming into dust. Chu Yao hastily summoned a wooden shield to protect everyone. However, this action was superfluous. The resulting dust of Di Long's body had no killing power. It was like ordinary dust. Damn, if I had known the nail is so amazing, I would have thought of a way to take down the entire door. Seeing Di Long actually be killed by this one move, Long Chen couldn't help but slap his own leg regretfully. If he had thousands of these nails, wouldn't he be unrivaled in the martial heaven continent? Just at this moment, Evelmun's voice rang out in Long Chen's mind. What kind of joke is that? Just taking a single nail almost cost you your life. You've already forgotten your lesson from that time. Furthermore, the nail might be powerful, but it requires an idiot of an enemy for it to be effective. He was careless, which is the only reason you managed to hit him with the nail. If he hadn't been so arrogant, you would have never been able to land the nail on his body. If the nail doesn't land, it's meaningless. Plus, that was just his clone, not his true body. Both his power and sense of danger were lacking compared to his true body. If it was his true body here, then no matter how well you schemed, he would have sensed the danger and you wouldn't have been able to strike him. In the end, this thing is an external object. You should consider how to raise your own power instead. It has already been so long, but your cultivation base hasn't advanced at all. Just what year are you planning on advancing to Life Star? Evelmun's voice grew increasingly frustrated. As long as Long Chen's cultivation base didn't reach the Life Star realm, he wouldn't be able to undo its seal. That was what it wanted most of all. Aren't I busy? Fine. When I get back, I'll immediately refine some pills to cultivate. Long Chen truly felt that he should increase his power. His cultivation speed was too slow. They returned to the flying boat and continued onward through the ancient battlefield. When Meng Qi asked about the origin of the nail, she couldn't help sweating when she heard the story. She looked at Long Chen like he was a monster. To take a nail from the gates of hell, that was definitely not something a sane person would do. Only Long Chen would do something like that. They carefully advanced as the space around them was shuddering more intensely. They could vaguely hear terrifying roars and feel the intense battle of countless years ago. There were innumerable fallen spirits here. Even Long Chen felt a chill. There were many records about this battlefield, all saying different things. The ancient races, righteous path, Xian beasts, and even the corrupt path had historical records of their ancestors participating in this ancient battle, but those records didn't match. This battlefield was sealed with only one path through it. No one dared to actually enter the battlefield. The ancient battlefield had always been a mysterious existence. Just as Long Chen was controlling the flying boat to carefully advance, the channel ahead exploded, and a huge skeleton blocked their path. It was like a giant mountain floating in the sky, covering the sun. A huge skeleton appeared in the sky, emitting a tyrannical pressure that caused Long Chen and the others to jump in shock. They hastily brought the flying boat to a stop. This was the only path through the ancient battlefield. There was no other way. If they strayed from this path, they would become lost within the immense battlefield and never find their way out. Rumor was that the ancient battlefield was the result of peerless experts fighting at such a high level that they shattered the laws of the martial heaven continent. As a result, the fighting wills from that battle persisted all the way to the present, as not even the laws of time could wipe them out. Sometimes, some strange scenes would appear within the channel, but it was forbidden to touch them. Under ordinary circumstances, they wouldn't affect people that much. The huge skeleton suddenly let out a bestial roar. Spatial fluctuations exploded out of it, sending the flying boat flipping back. Long Chen hastily controlled the flying boat to retreat. He did his best to make it retreat along their original path. Isn't it said that all the ancient battlefield's life forms died in battle? How can there still be one alive? Did it revive itself? Cried Tang. Wan-er. The skeleton was huge and looked similar to an earth dragon. However, its neck was very short, making the proportions wrong. Furthermore, it had 6 feet. It was unknown what kind of life form it was. It didn't revive, nor is it alive. This isn't even a real body. Although its body died, its will was not erased, said Long Chen gravely. This was an extremely shocking ability. It was clearly an incorporeal will that had condensed a body. That killing intent was not wiped out even after countless years. Just how terrifying was that? Following the giant skeleton's roar, more figures appeared. Flying birds, walking beasts, life forms with 2 wings on their backs, giants 300 meters tall. One of those giants punched the skeleton, blowing it apart. However, the giant was then attacked from behind by a winged creature. Its head was cut off by a sword. Each of their attacks was simple and direct. One punch shook the heavens, while one sword fractured space. The laws of heaven and earth were all destroyed over and over. They fought fiercely for a moment before the scene grew chaotic. Space twisted, and they vanished from sight. How powerful! Even after so many years, their battle will still remains. A portion of their battle can even affect our generation. This is a kind of eternal power. Chu Yao was still filled with shock. If they said that what they had just seen was all an illusion, that wouldn't be entirely accurate. The terrifying battle had ended up breaking free of the restrictions of space and time to affect them in the current era. However, they also couldn't say that what they had seen was necessarily real. Whatever it was, it had vanished in just a moment. Just what happened in the ancient era? We still don't know, but it's fine. We'll reach that height sooner or later, and at that time, all those secrets will no longer be secrets. Long Chen clenched his fist. That scene just now was truly stunning. Although it had only appeared for a moment, it had made Long Chen feel incredibly minute. In that intense battle, each blow had destroyed the laws of heaven and earth, and Long Chen had felt himself to be an ant without the slightest ability to resist. That had stimulated his determination to get stronger faster. Once he returned, he definitely couldn't continue tearing. He had to hurry up and increase his cultivation base. Long Chen then sent the flying boat forward carefully. They didn't encounter more strange sights on their way. Once they were out of the ancient battlefield, they sped up, flying for the eastern Xian region. In a certain underground room in the central Xian region, a roar rang out, filled with rage and beast-like brutality. Long Chen, you dared to destroy my clone? This person was Di Long. However, it wasn't his clone, but his true body. Di Long's expression was twisted, and killing intent raged in his eyes. He was clenching his fists so tightly that they creaked. Di Long pushed open a stone door. When he walked out, 2 elders looked at him in surprise. Alliance Head, why have you come out of seclusion so quickly? Di Long's true body had entered seclusion not too long ago. The one in charge of urgent matters had been his clone, and his true body was not to be disturbed by anyone. These 2 elders were half-step Netherpassage experts. They were guarding this room to prevent anyone from disturbing Di Long. How is DXing? Di Long didn't reply, instead asking a question. The Heavenly Spirit Divine Tree is currently absorbing young Master DXIN's death chi. Although he hasn't woken yet, the death chi has essentially been suppressed. Furthermore, we've already had someone from Heavenly Fate Island read young Master Di Long's fate. He has escaped danger this time, answered one of the elders. That elder was curious. With Di Long's clone outside, all this information should have been known to him. After all, his true body soul was linked to his clone's soul. Why did he need to ask? He didn't know that Di Long's clone had been destroyed by Long Chen. Although Di Long had immediately severed his connection to his clone when he was stabbed by the nail, he had been infected by a portion of its death energy. Hence, Di Long currently felt a needle-like pain in his head. Part of that pain was due to the nail, while another reason was the destruction of his clone. He had lost part of his soul with it. In this kind of situation, Di Long couldn't possibly cultivate properly. The destruction of his clone infuriated Di Long. He had never expected a soul transformation disciple to have the means to destroy his clone. He had taken a huge loss this time. Transmit my orders. The Ancient Family Alliance is officially breaking off relations with the Martial Heaven Alliance. We are no longer allied, and both sides will mind their own businesses. Announced Di Long. The two elders were shocked. Alliance head, that's not a good idea. We work together with the Martial Heaven Alliance to fight the corrupt path. If we break off ties, the corrupt path will immediately target us. The Ancient Family Alliance might be said to be on equal standing with the Martial Heaven Alliance, but in terms of combat power, it didn't even have a third of the power of the Martial Heaven Alliance. After all, the Martial Heaven Alliance was the sum of all the sects in the 5 great regions. Its total power was unimaginable. Compared to it, the Ancient Family Alliance was clearly weaker. If they were to split off, the corrupt path would become the Ancient Family Alliance's greatest threat. The two elders didn't understand Di Long's command, especially since the Devil Abyss was about to erupt. If the Ancient Family Alliance broke off ties with the Martial Heaven Alliance at such a critical time, they would appear despicable. If the Martial Heaven Alliance wasn't able to stop the Devil race's invasion at that time, the devil creatures would slaughter countless innocent people on the continent. Wouldn't the Ancient Family Alliance become a sinner in the eyes of the rest of the world? It's all the Martial Heaven Alliance's fault. Chu Jianying is harboring Long Qin, destroying the unity of the continent. Leaving behind the bad apples in the righteous path is already a grave mistake. I won't allow my Ancient Family Alliance to be ruined because of those bad apples, so it can't be called despicable. The wrong ones are Chu Jianying and Long Qin, not me. If Chu Jianying admits her mistake and kills Long Qin, we can still be allies and fight against the Devil Abyss together. Otherwise, she can only take responsibility for her own actions. Remember, people won't criticize us, but the Martial Heaven Alliance's Chu Jianying and Long Qin. In any case, it isn't your job to care about those things. Just do what I say. I want to see how tough Chu Jianying really is, snorted Di Long. Yes. The two of them didn't dare to say anything else. They turned and left. They had just left when space twisted slightly, and a woman appearing to be in her 30s appeared. She possessed an inherent air of nobility. I want to see Long Chen's head within 7 days. I won't allow anyone to harm Xuan. That Long Chen must die, said the woman gloomily. This woman was Di Xuan's mother. Oh, your clone is gone? Could it be? Perhaps others might not be able to sense the change in Di Long, but she was Di Long's wife, someone who had engaged in both spiritual and physical dual cultivation with him. She immediately sensed the change in his spiritual fluctuations. I was careless. That brat took out a special divine item to destroy my clone, answered Di Long. Di Xuan's mother looked at the unsightly Di Long and suddenly laughed. Di Long, Di Long. You really are blind. How did I end up falling for such a useless coward? That drag of the Mo family is running around digging up graves in the western Xin region, and even though you sent so many people to hunt him down, he's still living happily. Now your clone was not only slapped by Long Qin but even destroyed. If news of this spreads, will you still have the face to live? If I were you, I'd just kill myself. How can someone like you be the Alliance head? Shut up. Do you think I wanted this to happen? That brat of the Mo family refuses to show himself. He's too slippery. What can I possibly do against him? As for Long Qin, if it weren't for your precious son being duped by that slut Shinbijuan and being used, he would still be fine. It's all because you pampered him so much that he couldn't even see through such a simple trap. Now that I'm forced to stand up for him, how are you making it all my fault? Does your brain have a problem? Roared Di Long like an angry lion. His constrained emotions were finally erupting. It's all because you're useless. What qualifications do you have to randomly shout? If you could kill Long Chen with a wave of your hand, wouldn't things have been settled? Other than that, don't forget your status. If it weren't for my family's support, do you think your D family would have been able to snatch the Alliance head position from the MO family? Keep dreaming. Everything you have was bestowed to you by my family, so it would be best if you remember that. Without my family's support, you are nothing. D Long, if you don't kill Long Chen, I'll tell my family just how useless you are as Alliance head. If I really feel like it, I might even suggest they support someone else, sneered D Xian's mother before leaving. D Long's entire body quivered as he looked in her direction. He smashed a fake mountain in front of his private room to pieces out of rage. Boss, you're finally back. Boss, you really are awesome. You even managed to handle those bastards in the southern Xian region. Long Chen had just arrived at the gate when he saw the entire Dragonblood Legion waiting to greet him. Xuan was waving his hand, and his feet were dancing. How did you know? Asked Long Chen. Hee, how did we know? The Alliance head sent a message over. Apparently, the Xian master got a tongue lashing, something about how the Xian Tiandao sect had always followed the norm until he took over. He clearly corrupted you, laughed Guyang. Ah, the Alliance head wrongly accused the Xian master. I was corrupt from birth, laughed Long Chen. Long Chen couldn't help feeling a bit bad for the Xian master. Thinking of Chu Jianying's fiery temper, the Xian master had probably been cursed without daring to make a sound. After all, Chu Jianying's seniority was far above him. You brat, as long as you know that, it's fine. You caused so much trouble outside and ended up bringing it to me. Li Tianxuan's voice rang out, causing everyone to jump. Li Tianxian also appeared at the gate. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at Long Chen. Long Chen had only been gone for a few days, but he had completely wrecked the southern Xian region. Li Tianxian was fully convinced of Long Chen's ability to cause trouble. He was truly worthy of being a legendary existence. Hee, aren't we one family? I cause trouble, you handle it. What perfect cooperation, said Long Chen. Come in and have a look. The Xian Tiandao sect's construction is almost complete. Li Tianxian beckoned for them to come. Once beyond the gates, they let out startled cries. On the outside, the Xian Tiandao sect looked the same as ever, with tall mountains and flowing water. However, once they were in, they were immediately stunned by the mountains that pierced high into the clouds. Only now did they realize that there was a spatial formation covering this entire space. What they had seen outside was multiplied dozens of times. Stone steps coiled around the mountains, and those mountains all had special formations covering them, making them give off a heavy and majestic feeling. The dense spiritual qi struck Long Chen and the others as soon as they entered. The clouds and mist curling around the mountains made it seem like a wonderland. Those clouds weren't actually clouds, but the result of spiritual qi that had reached an extreme density. There were 81 main mountains, all the same size and arranged in a special formation that covered the entire Xian Tiandao sect. Each mountain had some busy workers doing things like arranging the formation's divine runes. They still weren't done with the construction. Heavens, this is so shocking. Tang Wan-er covered her mouth. It had just been a few months, but she no longer recognized the Xian Tiandao sect. It really is shocking. Even though I watch it rise day by day, I still feel shocked. Yu Zifeng nodded. This was everyone else's feeling as well. They had personally seen countless craftsmen working day and night. As they advanced, Long Chen suddenly looked at the staircase below them and said, Xian Master, isn't there supposed to be a formation supporting the staircase from below? Where's the formation? Cough, we'll discuss it later, said Li Tianxian awkwardly. Long Chen immediately realized that they had run out of money again. It seemed the difference between their initial estimate and the real cost was quite great. Continuous palaces appeared in the main area. At the core was a soaring tower and the largest building in the Xian Tiandao sect, the Xian Tian Tower. This giant reconstruction of the Xian Tiandao sect was all linked together by a formation below, which made the Xian Tiandao sect one giant entity. There were countless formations drawing energy from heaven and earth, providing it to the Xian Tian Tower. The Shentian Tower could use that energy to nourish itself, as well as use it for offense and defense. This was a terrifying construction, one that was most definitely unmatched within the martial heaven continent. Li Tianxian brought Long Chen to various areas. He showed Long Chen the alchemy hall, the 10,000 treasure pavilion, the cultivation rooms, the battle arenas, the Shentian Tower, and hundreds of other areas. Meng Qi and the others were stunned by everything they saw. The Shentian Dao sect had completely transformed. As for Long Chen, he didn't feel that much. This was all based on the diagrams that he had given Li Tianxian, so he had been prepared. There were quite a few disciples along their path, and they said hello to Long Chen. They were very respectful to Li Tianxian, but to Long Chen, they were filled with wild worship. This was the charisma of an expert that won over both men and women. After a stroll through most of the Shentian Dao sect, Meng Qi and the others were bedazzled, and they wanted to explore some smaller areas. As for Long Chen, he went with Li Tianxian to the Shentian Tower. At the peak of the Shentian Tower was the old patriarch. He was waiting for them with a smile. However, when he looked at Long Chen, that smile became a bit odd. It almost looked like a crying smile. Disciple greets the patriarch. Long Chen bowed respectfully. All right, there's no need to be so courteous to family. It's been hard on you this time. The patriarch had no idea what to say, so he simply followed common courtesy. It wasn't hard at all, said Long Chen politely. How could it not have been hard? You killed so many people. You must be tired, said Li Tianxian grumpily. He reached out to grab the teapot on the table. Long Chen immediately grabbed it first and poured tea for the three of them. He smiled. You also know that sometimes there's nothing that can be done. If I didn't kill others, they would have killed me. I'm quite afraid of death, so I could only kill them. Long Chen knew that Li Tianxian was irritated and sullen at having been scolded by Chu Jianying over his matter. Hence, Long Chen could only put on a smile. I understand you better than anyone. If you were to passively kill people, then it would have been fine. After all, it was for self-protection, and it wouldn't be all your fault. But, you shouldn't have slapped Di Long. You really are too brazen. That is even graver than killing all the southern Xian region's disciples. If Di Long doesn't avenge that slap, how is he supposed to face the rest of the martial heaven continent? Li Tianxian shook his head. When he had heard that Long Chen had slain all the elite disciples of the southern Xian region, Li Tianxian hadn't been that surprised. After all, Long Chen was a heaven defier and rejected by this world. Other heavenly geniuses wouldn't like him and would want to find trouble with him. Long Chen definitely wouldn't go easy on those people. However, when he heard that Long Chen had slapped Di Long in the face, even Li Tianxian had become dumbfounded. To slap the face of the leader of the ancient family alliance, that was really heaven-defying. Well, actually, the slap isn't that big of a deal anymore, sighed Long Chen. Little fellow, don't tell me you did something worse? Li Tianxian immediately felt a chill. It's not that bad. That Di Long is simply incurable. Despite being the leader of the ancient family alliance, he actually lowered himself to try and kill me on my way back here. I had no choice, so I used a nail that I brought back from the netherworld to hold him back. Originally, I thought that it could heavily injure him and win me a chance to escape, but who would have thought either the nail was too amazing or Di Long was too weak, but his clone was killed by the nail, so that really can't be blamed on me. Long Chen shrugged helplessly. Li Tianxian and the patriarch gasped. Di Long's clone? I didn't kill him, it was just his fate. It has nothing to do with me, said Long Chen. When Li Tianxian asked about the nail, Long Chen hesitated but still ended up telling them that it was something he had taken from the gates of hell. Long Chen felt that since Chu Jianying could retain her memories from before the gates of hell, the matters outside the gates of hell shouldn't be too forbidden. Li Tianxian and the patriarch were speechless. Long Chen's guts were too big. He actually dared to take a nail from the gates of hell? That wasn't something a normal person would do. However, when they heard of the nail's origin, they could understand how someone as powerful as Di Long had still lost a clone to it. After all, it was something from the netherworld. Don't spread word about this matter. I trust Di Long also won't say anything about it. After all, This is extremely embarrassing for him. Let's just all keep this to ourselves. However, this will probably make things harder on Senior Chu, sighed Li Tianxian. He understood the rules of the cultivation world far better than Long Chen. He knew that Chu Jianying was about to run into trouble. Long Chen didn't hear Li Tianxuan's meaning behind his final sentence. He said, "Xian Master, have we run out of money again?" "Yes. I have no choice but to accept that this formation diagram is truly terrifying. The cost is just as terrifying as its power. If you didn't guarantee that there was no problem with that Xia Chen, I'd suspect he was intentionally trying to con us. We've already spent so much money on just building this preliminary form. There are still many formations that need to be built, and many other areas that need more money. Each time we restart building, our initial budget gets thrown out. Based on our current money, it seems we'll only be able to finish half." Li Tianxian felt a headache as soon as this was brought up. The further the construction went, the greater the cost. "This is no problem. I've already reached an agreement with the Alliance head. For the Devil Abyss's eruption, the Xian Dao sect will handle the entire Eastern Xian region side. Then all the Eastern Xian region's reward will go to us," said Long Chen. "Are you really confident in that? The great era has come. The Devil Abyss is going to erupt at an unprecedented scale," warned Li Tianxian. "Don't worry about it. This time, I'm more confident than any other time." Long Chen patted his chest confidently. He truly was full of confidence this time. This was the moment to collectively increase the Dragon Blood Legion's power. Once Long Chen returned to the Xian Dao sect, the disciples blazed with passion. The news that Long Chen had crushed all the experts of the southern Xian region had already spread throughout the sect. Once Long Chen returned to Crouching Dragon Mountain, he saw Hua Shiyu, Zhao Zian, Wang Zhen, Mu Qingxian, and Su Mo. The Xian Dao sect's karmic luck had grown explosively, and they had undergone a divine baptism, allowing them to become Empyreans. They and the newly joined Empyreans were at the bottom of Crouching Dragon Mountain to greet Long Chen. As for rank 9 Celestials and below, they felt too inferior to even come and greet him. They were in the midst of hesitating over whether or not they should thicken their faces and come anyway when Long Chen had Guoran gather all the core disciples at the Soul Transformation Realm to celebrate. Those disciples went wild with joy. When Long Chen saw over 100,000 Soul Transformation disciples gather at Crouching Dragon Mountain, he jumped in shock. During the time that he had been gone, the Xian Dao sect had gained another large batch of disciples. One reason was because many people worshipped him. He was the #1 person of the Eastern Xian region's junior generation. No one else could cover up his light. To be in the same sect as him was a kind of glory in itself. Another reason was because of the massive scale of the Xian Dao sect's reconstruction. It was truly shocking, and to be able to join such a powerful sect would definitely give them limitless prospects. Even people from other regions were attracted by the Xian Dao sect's fame. Many people had only seen images of Long Chen fighting. Now that they saw him in person, they were impassioned. When Long Chen saw so many fiery gazes looking at him, his own emotions stirred. He saw the purest emotion in those eyes as well as the staunchest confidence. They worshipped him. People worshipped the strong, or perhaps what they worshipped was unrivaled power. Only by following such an expert could they also grow stronger. Anyone exceptionally powerful would definitely have geniuses following them. The Dragon Blood Legion's warriors were also impassioned. The reason they could follow Long Chen was mostly thanks to luck. The Dragon Blood warriors who had joined him at the Xian Dao sect were the weakest disciples who had been abandoned by the others. Long Chen had felt pity for them, and he had helped them at a critical moment, saving their lives and allowing them to reach their current height. The Xian Dao sect was filled with heavenly geniuses, but none of them could join the Dragon Blood Legion. The original members were filled with pride and gratitude. Brothers and sisters, welcome to the Xian Dao sect. This is our home. Those who sincerely join the Xian Dao sect are my brothers and sisters, and I will fight for all of you. Long Chen was also a bit emotional as he faced these passionate feelings. Those disciples' passion only grew as he spoke. They all knew about his history. He had risen from a small nation in the secular world of the Eastern Wasteland. Although he had been surrounded by enemies, not one of them could say that he didn't care about his people. Even his enemies had to admit he was a hot-blooded man. These disciples felt their own blood heating up just by hearing him speak. If you can raise your blades for me, I can also fight for you. I would sacrifice my life for my brothers and sisters. However, I won't allow anyone to betray me. I know many of you have come with your own intentions. As for who you are, I won't say anything directly. Now, the impassioned crowd grew cold. Senior apprentice brother Long Chen, who would dare? Just point them out, and we'll tear them to pieces, shouted a disciple. Yes, we won't allow traitors amongst us. Those people are the worst. These disciples' confidence in Long Chen had reached a fanatical level. It was practically at the level where they would believe anything that came out of his mouth. Perhaps that was the blindness of worship. It caused people to lose their own ability to think as they stubbornly believed what they believed. Quite a few people's expressions changed slightly. They saw Long Chen's sharp eyes seeming to see everything in their heads. Long Chen waved his hand, making the angry people calm down. He said, "Due to my special cultivation technique, I am very perceptive toward other people's hearts. I can sense whether a person has good or bad intentions toward me. Because of that, I can fully trust the brothers of my Dragon Blood Legion, and they can trust me. We don't have the slightest suspicions toward each other. The people with ulterior motives? Have you ever seen any other group of over 10,000 people that would entrust their lives to each other without the slightest hesitation? I believe that you haven't. You haven't seen such a thing, nor have you ever heard of such a thing. If a single person amongst those 10,000 people was disloyal, it would completely fracture the entire group. However, there is no such person in my Dragon Blood Legion. I will brag a bit and say that in this entire world, only I have the ability to form such a group. For those who joined the Xiantian Dao sect for your own purposes, I can ignore what you've done. In fact, I won't even expose you today. I will give you an opportunity. I know you were probably incited to do so by a loved one, or perhaps you want to sell information for money, or perhaps you want to instigate trouble to prevent the Xiantian Dao sect's growth. The reason isn't important. The important thing is that I'm giving you a chance. I don't care what sect sent you here as a spy, or whatever goal you have. As long as you can sincerely devote yourself to my Xiantian Dao sect today, then you will be one of my Xiantian Dao sect's disciples. No matter who is forcing you, my Xiantian Dao sect and I, Long Chen, will stand up for you. Long Chen's voice caused quite a few conflicted expressions to appear amongst the crowd. One disciple walked forward and said, "Senior apprentice brother Long Chen, I've let you down. I am a spy sent from the Harmonic Phoenix Gate. The Gate Master had me stay here to provide him with information. I'm sorry, Suddenly, a black mark appeared on that disciple's forehead. It rapidly spread, covering his body like a spiderweb. It's a death contract. A woman cried out in shock as she recognized this curse. This kind of curse would make a person essentially a slave. If they went against orders, the curse would activate, taking their life. It was an incredibly sinister technique. That disciple clearly hadn't taken it willingly. Now that he went against it, he had signed his own death penalty. People were impressed by his bravery, as well as infuriated by what he had gone through. Long Chen pointed a finger at that person. The black mark that had been rapidly spreading reversed. Black chi surged out of it toward Long Chen's finger, and Long Chen's arm began to turn black. Senior apprentice brother Long Chen, you can't. That disciple immediately cried out, wanting to pull away. However, Long Chen's finger had a powerful suction force that prevented him from doing so. All the disciples' hearts were pounding wildly. Long Chen was using himself to take the curse. That was because this kind of curse was extremely difficult to deal with. It could not be expelled because if it was forcibly expelled, it would kill that disciple along with it. Long Chen smiled. Since you could brave death and show your true feelings, how could I let you die? Don't worry, this little curse can't do anything to me. The black mark on the disciple quickly vanished. Long Chen raised his hand, and his spiritual strength surged. Black qi was leaping chaotically around his hand. Meng qi, help me out. Meng qi nodded and formed a few hand seals. A spiritual rune appeared between her hands and fell on Long Chen's black palm. Buzz! That rune landed on the black qi, and a scene actually appeared within it. It revealed a skinny elder forming hand seals with a shocked expression. Gate Master? That disciple immediately recognized the elder. Someone despicable enough to curse his own disciple can be called a gate master? Looks like you need to be smelted down and reforged anew. Get going. Long Chen looked at the bitterly struggling elder within the black qi. Long Chen's Yuan spirit appeared and pointed a finger. A ray of divine light shot into the black qi. No! That elder let out a single cry before his head exploded. His Yuan spirit died. This kind of contract was double-sided. Although one person was the victim and the other was in control, there was still a spiritual connection between them. Although Long Chen's spiritual strength was great, he wasn't skilled in soul arts. Meng Qi was the one capable of using the connection formed by the curse to form a bridge back to the elder. That elder wasn't even able to break the connection once she used it. Long Chen didn't give him any chance and killed him while he could only watch. Once that elder was killed, the black qi scattered. Lightning runes appeared on Long Chen's arm, and his originally black arm instantly returned to its normal color. Long Chen patted the disciple's shoulder. Congratulations. Starting now, you are a disciple of my Xiantian Dao sect. As long as you are loyal to the Xiantian Dao sect, we will not let you down. Many thanks, Senior Apprentice Brother Long Chen. That disciple knelt as thanks. In the future he would no longer be a chess piece. However, Long Chen held him up, gravely saying, men shouldn't kneel so easily. Amongst brothers, this kind of etiquette is an insult. That disciple couldn't speak through his tears. There was no way for him to express his gratitude. Senior Apprentice Brother Long Chen, I was also forced. Senior Apprentice Brother Long Chen, I also have that on my body. Senior Apprentice Brother Long Chen, please save me. Seeing that person being saved, over 1,000 disciples immediately began to cry out for Long Chen's help, causing the others to jump in shock. There are actually this many. The entire crowd became chaotic with quite a few disciples shouting. Those disciples were forced to come to the Xiantian Dao sect, and they had spent every day worried about being found, as well as the condemnation of their own conscience. That wasn't a good feeling, especially when they came across the warriors of the Dragonblood Legion. They could sense the Dragonblood warriors' absolute trust in each other, and that made them feel even worse inside. They wished they could join the Xiantian Dao sect sincerely, but they couldn't. They also couldn't expose their identities, because while only some had spiritual contracts, another portion without the contracts might be heirs to other large sections. Because they were worthy of trust, they had been tossed into the Xiantian Dao sect without a spiritual contract. However, people had a selfish side, and who didn't want to be free? Who didn't want to always get stronger? No one was willing to carry the title of a treacherous spy. That was a stain to any expert. Long Chen had given them a chance to wipe away the stain, and they naturally wouldn't let such a chance pass. After today, they would be true disciples of the Xiantian Dao sect. It was like being reborn. Divine light from the Xiantian Tower enveloped crouching Dragon Mountain. Li Tianxuan's voice rang out. Don't panic. With the Xiantian Tower's protection, no one can harm you here. Those who have spiritual marks or contracts can come to the Xiantian Tower to be cleansed. As long as you have a sincere heart and are determined to fight for the righteous path to protect the martial heaven continent's peace and prosperity, then no matter which sect sent you here or what ulterior goals you had before, the Xiantian Dao sect is willing to forgive and forget. With even Li Tianxian and the Xiantian Tower expressing their attitudes, those worried disciples began to weep tears of emotion. This chance to wipe away their sins was something probably only the Xiantian Dao sect could give them. Disciples that had been hesitating also came forward now. A huge weight was lifted off their shoulders. It felt like they had been reborn. Over 1,000 disciples went to the Xiantian Tower, with half having spiritual contracts. Those without spiritual contracts began to apologize to the surrounding disciples. Those disciples were at first indignant, but they quickly accepted their apologies. After all, not everyone was free. There were countless reasons they did what they did. The disciples who did have spiritual contracts in particular must have had tough lives. Although they were talented enough, they had still been forced to accept such a spiritual contract. They had basically been chess pieces. Those disciples weren't blamed by others but were softly comforted. Long Chen, your cultivation technique is so amazing. It can actually distinguish who's harboring secret motives. Tang Wan-er softly whispered to Long Chen while holding his hand. She had a worshipful expression now. The current Long Chen truly appeared wise. It was like he was all-knowing, and his words were powerful and resonating. What's so amazing about it? Do you think everything someone else says is trustworthy? I was just lying, whispered Long Chen. Fortunately, things were chaotic enough that only Meng Qi, Chu Yao, Guo Ran, Gu Yang, and a few others could hear them. They were all dumbfounded. It's not like I'm a god. How can I tell who's a good person and who's a bad person just like that? The only thing I can sense is someone's hostility when they want to kill me. That's something even you can sense. Since they just came to gather information and didn't have any obvious hostility toward me, how could I possibly tell who they were? This was just bait, said Long Chen mischievously. Long Chen, you're evil. Meng Qi covered her mouth and laughed. Even they had been tricked. They really had thought that his cultivation technique could tell who was good and who was bad. Then boss, how did you know there would be this many spies? Gu Yang rubbed his head. Fool, this is just an unwritten rule. What sect doesn't have other people's eyes inside it? We have recruited so many disciples, so there should be spies among them. Ignoring everyone else, just look at our own Shen master. He has such an understanding of the major powers of the continent. Where do you think that information comes from? They finally understood. No wonder he said it was an unwritten rule, so everyone did this. It's impossible to get rid of all the spies. However, if we can clean up a portion of them, then that's good. Most likely the rest are loyal to death to others. It's basically impossible to get them to expose themselves, said Long Chen. Then what do we do about them? Asked Guo Ran. What do we do? Why do we have to do anything? With the Xian Master's intelligence, he'll find out who they are sooner or later. And he definitely won't expose them. He'll leave them so he can mislead them and send out fake news. Using other people's chess pieces, when it comes to this, the Xian Master's the real evil one. I'm just a novice in comparison, laughed Long Chen. You're both evil. Fortunately, we're on the same side, said Tang Wan-er gladly. She found that other than cultivation, she didn't know anything. Long Chen and the Xian Master's scheming was so deep that they could kill their enemies without needing to personally fight. Once we tidy up some of them, the rest will easily expose themselves on the battlefield. For example, if a dog's fur glowed, it would be easier to see ticks. I've now made their fur glow, making it a bit easier for the Xian Master to find the parasites. If we don't know who they are, it will be difficult for everyone to fight with their full power. Well, there's no need to talk too much about it. Today's a good day, so let's properly celebrate with food and drink. We should boost our morale before the devil abyss erupts. I have to make sure we leave the Xiantian Dao sect with a powerful army protecting it, said Long Chen. Long Chen, you mean? Meng Qi and the others were startled. Pretty much. Our enemies are only growing stronger. The Xiantian Dao sect has helped us out immensely and is our home. However, we are like baby birds that will need to leave the nest one day to survive on our own. If we grow dependent on this nest, we'll likely implicate the Xiantian Dao sect one day. But before we leave, we have to leave behind a legend, a kind of will, a kind of feeling, a kind of energy, something that makes people say that in this world, there is a supreme kind of conviction, and its name is the Dragon Blood Legion. Long Chen's eye sparkled with a determined light. No matter how much time passed, no matter what era passed, the Dragon Blood Legion's trust in each other would never grow outdated. It would forever be passed down amongst people. There would be a new faith, called The Legend of the Dragon Blood. Boss, you really are amazing at duping people. I have an urge to find a battlefield right now and kill until rivers of blood flow, said Gu Yang excitedly. Long Chen rolled his eyes. Gu Yang was never good with words. He had grown such a bright head for nothing. Everyone celebrated in Crouching Dragon Mountain for a day. Huge waves stirred in the Xintian Dao sect due to Long Chen's return this time. That was because of Guo Ran's loud mouth. Originally, only a selected few plus the Dragonblood Legion had known what had happened during the Jade Lake pageant, but Guo Ran just couldn't hold back his gabbing. He directly narrated how Long Chen had shown his might in the southern Xian region. On his own, he had slaughtered all the southern Xian region's elite disciples. Not only that, but he had dominated their senior experts as well. That was a supreme glory. Long Chen, what is it? Are you not happy? Long Chen, Meng Qi, Chu Yao, and Tang Wan-er were hiding in a corner, quietly watching Guo Ran continue bragging. Tang Wan-er had spoken up upon seeing Long Chen's expression. It's nothing. Long Chen smiled, but that smile was a bit forced. Long Chen, it wasn't your fault. The martial path is full of struggles. There's no person who's innocent, and there's no such thing as subduing enemies with unrivaled kindness. If you want to live, you have to be vicious. You had no other choice in that situation. Meng Qi held Long Chen's hand. She knew Long Chen was still brooding over that matter. However, in that critical moment, he really hadn't had any choice. If there was someone to be blamed, it would have to be Shen Bijuan. If Long Chen hadn't been that vicious, Meng Qi and the others would have been in danger. Those people had been controlled by Shen Bijuan. Long Chen had known that and had still killed them. There was no way to say whether his actions were right or wrong, but he couldn't help feeling uncomfortable inside. Seeing people celebrating this matter was what made him feel bad. Was the existence known as glory really so amazing? If killing wasn't to protect, then what was the point of getting stronger? In that instant, Long Chen suddenly felt a bit lonely. I'm fine. I just suddenly feel a bit tired. These merciless heavenly Daos are always forcing me to be a killer, and I can't stop it. I feel like my fate is being played by a bored heavens. The feeling of being a dancing monkey is irritating. Long Chen looked up at the sky with a touch of fury in his eyes. It was Shen Bijuan who had been so sinister and sly that she had arranged traps for Long Chen, which made it so he lost no matter what choice he made. The heavens were the same. Ever since he had stepped onto his cultivation path, he had felt like he was a chess piece. His path forward looked like it had many forks, many choices. But no matter what choice he made, he ran into incomparable difficulties. Long Chen will worry about you like this. Chu Yao hugged his arm, leaning against his shoulder. They all knew that although Long Chen had slain Shen Bijuan's sinister scheme had left behind a seed in Long Chen's heart. That was a dangerous seed. They didn't know if it would affect Long Chen. No one else could talk him around. Whether or not he could resolve this knot in his heart would be up to himself. I'm fine. I was just feeling a bit emotional. Starting tomorrow, the Dragonblood Legion has to go into collective seclusion to increase our power. Long Chen took a deep breath and expelled those thoughts. He had no time to consider those things. As long as he could protect those he wanted to protect. So what if he had to become a fiend? When that thought appeared in his mind, a strange shadow appeared on the Divine Gate star. However, it only appeared for an instant before vanishing as if nothing happened, leaving no one the wiser. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.